Every law is illegal.
Every law is illegal.
Every government upon the face of this earth today is illegal. Every law is illegal.
The white power structure, because that's all we have in America. And the white power structure today is just as much interested in perpetuating slavery as the white power structure was 100 years ago. Only now they use modern methods of doing so. And realizing that the black people in this country are waking up and becoming filled with a desire to be looked upon as men and as human beings. The white power structure, to slow down that struggle for freedom and human dignity, uses tricks. 100 years ago they could do it with chains. Today they use tricks. And one of the tricks that they've invented is this token integration. To get Negroes, so-called Negro leaders, to accept a few token crumbs of integration that don't solve any problem for the masses of black people in this country whatsoever, but it does make the hand-picked Negroes be satisfied to slow down the cry of the masses. And a good example of that is as soon as the spirit of rebellion or revolution began to spread among the masses of black people in this country, and they began to take an active part, and they showed that they weren't confined to this nonviolent approach, then the government or the power structure began to sit up and take notice and
And when you total up the number of people in the Western Hemisphere of African descent, you probably find that there are over 100 million Afro-Americans here in the Western Hemisphere, and the white man knows that. But he skillfully has prevented any organizations or any coalition of organizations here in the Western Hemisphere from making any effort to unite the people of the United States with the people of African descent in the West Indies, the people of African descent in Latin America and in Central America and South America. But when we realize the power that we have here numerically, then and we study the Nkrumah doctrine of Pan-Africanism, which means all the good that they do is not only for the Africans at home, but also for the Africans abroad, we can see that our philosophical migration, though we stay here in the Western Hemisphere physically, our philosophical, our cultural, our psychological migration back to Africa, which means we establish our spiritual ties with Africa, our cultural ties with Africa, while just the establishing of this type of bridge, this type of communication, and this type of bond will be very, very helpful in enabling the people of African descent here in the United States to gain probably one of the strongest political, economic, and social positions that has ever been occupied by a strange people in a strange land since the beginning of the world.
With our struggle since the 60s, you will see nothing but betrayals by the petty bourgeois elements in our society. The African bourgeoisie is the most corrupt bourgeoisie in the world. In Africa, they seek luxury in the midst of mass suffering. There are more Mercedes in Africa than in any other continent in the world. In America, as soon as they arrive at a position based on this blood of the people, they snatch that position and run away from the people. But you must not think that they represent the people. They only represent their opportunistic self, using the people every step of the way. So you must not be confused. It must be clear then, for the 60s, the class struggle in the African Revolution must be more ruthless and uncompromising than in any other revolution. Here then the masses must come without pity and without mercy to trample upon these reactionary pigs who, after the people have gained struggle through their blood, come to hand back the gains on a silver platter to the very enemy the people fought. This will come as a natural consequence. The people themselves are everywhere screaming that it's time for them to deal with these reactionary pigs. Even in America, they say, our leaders must be held accountable. They're only saying here that these people must be accountable to those who made it possible for them to get there. Thus, Not only is the revolution inevitable, but it is clarifying itself and it is qualifying itself. For the African masses everywhere, the clairpoised position now for class struggle has become inevitable and irreversible. The petty bourgeoisie everywhere will be running for cover, but the masses will spare them not. Consequently, we who have dedicated our lives to the people's struggle, we who, knowing that the people will always be free, we, understanding that we must make a contribution to qualify our struggle since the 60s, have been dedicating all our energies to only one task: the organization of the masses of our people. The organization of the masses of our people. We are not running for mayor, we're not running for president. No changes can come from the top down. We're not stupid. Changes can only come from the bottom up. The masses and the masses alone can make them. If you want to learn something from the 60s, the lesson is simple: organize the masses of the people. Thank you.
There are three major questions that, as I mentioned last class, there are three major questions that will determine how this war is fought, what this war will end up looking like, and how the world will change. And as I discussed last class, I'm making three predictions about this war. The first is the United States will use ground troops. And this will mean that Donald Trump will institute a national draft. Okay? That's the first prediction. Second prediction is that Israel and the United States will not use tactical nuclear weapons in this war. Number three is that the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in the Islamic world, will be destroyed during this war. Okay, so last class, I explained my analysis and my reasoning for my first two predictions. Today, I'll explain my third prediction. So, but before we start, I just want to look at some videos, okay? So you understand some of the context, some of the players in this war. All right, so this is Senator Blumenthal of Connecticut, and he is one of the 100 members of the US Senate. He's also one of the members of the Gang of Eight. Now, when you are fighting a war, the White House has responsibility to report its objectives, its purpose, how the war is progressing to 8 members of Congress in a confidential setting, okay? And this is Senator Blumenthal after he's been debriefed by the White House. Okay, and this is what he has to say about the progress of the war so far.
I emerged from this briefing as dissatisfied and angry, frankly, as I have from any past briefing in my 15 years in the Senate. I am left with more questions than answers, especially about the cost of the war. My questions have been unanswered, and I will demand answers because the American people deserve to know. And I guess I am most concerned about the threat to American lives of potentially deploying our sons and daughters on the ground in Iran. We seem to be on a path toward deploying American troops on the ground in Iran to accomplish any of the potential objectives here. And there is also, as disturbingly as anything else, the specter of active Russian aid to Iran, putting in danger American lives.
All right. So 3 things to take away from his talk with reporters, okay? The first thing is the administration, Donald Trump, the White House, has not articulated a budget How much will this war cost? Which means that this is an open-ended war. We don't know when this war will end. And so we don't know what the commitment is. And so we don't know how much this war will cost. Okay, that's the first point he makes. The second point he makes is we are on a path towards the deployment of ground troops in Iran. Okay, and that basically means a national draft. And the third thing that's crucial is he says that they know for a fact that Russia is already involved in this war, aiding Iran. Okay, so that's the three main takeaways from. Okay, so this is the foreign minister of Iran, Agachi, talking to NBC News. All right, and NBC News is going to ask Agachi, "Hey, there's talk in the United States already of ground."
Now, folks, once again, this is Frank. The show going to start at around 1 p.m. But we usually do this to get your attention. But let me just project a little bit, and then just give me 1 minute of your time, please. So, as you heard in the video, that Russia is also giving support to Iran, right? To some of you now, who are not truthful, right? Let's say this. You see the same thing. Look, you see this is what, right? To some of you Christian, right? I'm not talking to the non-believer, all right? But even also to the non-believer. It is said that do unto others as you expect others to do unto you. Now, I'm kind of emphasizing on the believer, all right? Because most of the believer will not hear this video and then go, why? Oh, Russia is supporting Iran. Russia is giving arms to Iran, blah, 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 blah. But again, to the believer who read the Bible, who are so-called Christian, right? Do unto others as you expect others to do unto you. Now, won't you expect Russia to give armed support to Iran? Will it be a problem if even Russia do that? Because yesterday, when we check, the United States did the same thing in Ukraine against Russia. Money, armed support was given to Ukraine to fight Russia. So what will you think? Russia wouldn't do the same thing to give support to Iran in every way she can. Anyway, I don't want to go deeper. Let's continue. There are some things will not be said here.
Ground troops being used against Iran. Okay? Now I want you to observe his response and then the response of the journalist.
President Trump has not ruled out boots on the ground in Iran. Are you afraid of a U.S. invasion in your country?
No, we are waiting for them.
You were waiting for the U.S. military to invade the ground troops?
Yes, because we are confident that we can confront them, and that would be a big disaster for them.
Okay, you understand? Okay.
So you're saying that Iran is ready and willing to take on the U.S. military if there were to be ground troops?
Well, we were ready for this.
Okay, so again, certain things to appreciate.
So before the narrator continue, right, this is just your introduction. I want to get your attention, all right? This is the WCC. Don't worry. Now, you listen to one of the Iranian officials, right? When I ask him. Now, and let me say this, folks. I don't know how you're going to do it, how you're going to take it, how you're going to accept it. World War III is already on. And that's a fact. World War III is already on. And that's the facts. Now, as for now, you may not see the physical or the actual, right, battlefield as to you see the Iranian soldiers and Israeli soldiers or American soldiers exchanging fire, right? And both sides, you see soldiers falling, being wounded, and all of those things. You may not see it, right? That's technology. What you see going on right now is already World War III. It's war of precisions, meaning war of drum. You sit in your country or in another man's country and you have military base and use that military base, right? And then send your drum, and that drum that is going, there's no human being in it. You sit in next man's country, but you have your base there and you use your drum, right? Precision, war of precision. And you send your drum to a target bound. That is what's going on. All right? War of precision. It's technology. You either sit in your country or you sit in another man's country that you have your base, right? You send your drum to a specific target, bam, bam. You blast it up. That's the war going on right now. So, it's going to come to a time. It's going to get to that point. After the war of precision, like drone, technology, and all of those things, it's going to go physical. And the physical aspect, where you will see it, Iranian soldiers, American soldiers, or Israeli soldiers, right? Physically on a battlefield. Physically on a battlefield. All right? And you're going to see Russian soldiers or Russian soldiers and Chinese soldiers physically on a battlefield. But for now, it is a war of precision that is being fought using technology. World War III is on, folks. Don't get it twisted. Let's continue.
First of all, the foreign minister, I got you, he is not at all concerned about ground troops. In fact, he basically said, it's a trap for you guys. You come in, we've been preparing for about 20 years for this, we'll destroy you. Another thing that you will notice is the journalist is completely surprised by the answer. He's shocked into silence. He has to ask again, wait, are you saying you're ready for ground troops? And so this shows you that within Washington, D.C.
And by the way, we're going to go detail into this, right? We're going to go detail into this, right? By the way, the United States and Israel, and to some of you who believe that Iran is the problem, and that is why we have this podcast today. To some of you, most of you, right? Majority of you, all right, who believe that Iran is the problem. According to an Israeli officials, I mean, it's not just ordinary person. Along with the United States, they have been preparing for this war for 37 years. Imagine that. To some of you who believe Iran is a problem, according to them, they have been preparing for this current event. For about 37 years. Can you imagine that? So how can it be Iran when Israel is saying they, along with the United States, have been preparing for this for 37 years? And Iran is saying they've been prepared for this for 10 years. So who is the problem? Someone who been preparing for this against another nation for 37 years. With all tactics, with all propaganda. And there's somebody who may say, you know what? We need to build our army. We need to build our technology. We need to build ourselves in 10 years. Who is the problem? Let's continue.
Okay, within the Trump administration, within the foreign policy elite, within the media elite, they haven't really thought this through out. They really haven't considered the possibility of losing this war. Washington, D.C. right now, it's a bubble, okay? It's an insular bubble where everyone just believes the same things. And that's very problematic if you are to continue fighting this war, okay? All right, let's continue. Okay, this is Rabbi Sneerson. And he is the leader, or he used to be, he's died, but he used to be the leader of an organization called the Shabbat Lubavitch. I'll be talking more about Shabbat Lubavitch as we go along, okay? But I introduce you to him now. This year, 1990, and he is talking to Benjamin Netanyahu, who is a young and upcoming.
So, like they said, they've been preparing for about 37 years. If you look on his trend, right? If you look right here on his trend here, this is 1990. This is 1990. The plot is going on against Iran. This is 1990. The plot is going on against Iran. Now, let me make this disclaimer. All right? Today's podcast is not about Iran or in favor of Iran. It's actually about Africa. In favor of Africa. It's about Africans. In favor of Africans. It's about Black people. In favor of Black people. It's about the so-called African puppet leader. They like, they should listen. They like, they shouldn't listen. This is not about Russia. We care less. This is not about China. We care less. This is not about the United States. We care less. This is not about Asia. We care less. This is not about Iran. We care less. You know the reason why we care less? These people have the military capability to fight and protect themselves. These people have the economic capability to provide and survive for themselves. This is about Black people in general. This is about Africa. Because you do not have the military might. You do not have the economic might. This is about you. Nothing less. Nothing more. You like, take it. You don't like, don't take it. But the message must be preached.
Politician in Israel, okay? And so let's look at the conversation. This is Netanyahu,
מה שהוא יעוז, וגם משהו שעדיין משאיר ליבו, אז הייתה משהו במה ידיעתו. עושים. הכנראה שהיא מספיק, כאילו שהיום כבר שוד, כמה שוד, מגיע עדיין ליבו, אבל יש עוד כמה שעות, אבל יש להשתדל גם היום, בצורה טובה.
Okay, so what's going on here? Okay, so as an up-and-coming politician, Netanyahu is going to the rabbi, and the rabbis are the most powerful people in the Jewish society. He basically says, will you give me your blessing? Will you support me in my political endeavors? And the rabbi says, yes. They also talk about how things are progressing, Okay? So another way of saying this is that there's almost like a plan in motion to achieve certain religious objectives. And things are going well. But the Rabbi Schneerson says, but they're not going fast enough because we need the Messiah, the great leader of the Jewish people, to come. And we can set in motion things that will force the coming of the Messiah. So let's speed things up, Netanyahu. Okay? So what this is, I'll explain later on, okay? But I want you to be aware of this, who these people are. Rabbi Schneerson is very important for our story. And Netanyahu, of course, is the current prime minister of Israel. All right, let's continue.
We want to know what you're reading now.
What I'm reading?
Yeah.
For the Jews against Rome.
What made you pick it up?
Well, we lost that one. I think we have to win the next.
All right, so that's a very quick exchange, okay? So a journalist is asking Benjamin Netanyahu, what book are you reading now? And he says, Rome versus the Jews. It's a book by Barry Strauss, a historian. And it goes on about the 3 wars that the Jews fought against the Romans. And it was essentially a Holocaust for the Jews. A lot of Jews either died or were enslaved. The Romans burned down the Second Temple. So there's this historical animosity of the Jews against the Romans, okay? But what he said is, what Benjamin Netanyahu said is that I'm reading this book because we lost that war against Rome. But the next war against Rome, we must not lose. The question then is, who's Rome? It's not Iran, guys. It's probably not Russia. It's probably America, right? The great empire. So this is strange because Israel is the ally of America in this war. But Netanyahu is saying that, no, our real enemy is Rome. And that's what we must prepare for, okay? So I want you guys to keep this in mind. All right, this is Peter Hegseth, who is the Secretary of War for Donald Trump, okay? And this is the year about 2018, where he is in Jerusalem, and he's talking to Christian Zionists, okay? Who these people are, I'll explain later on, okay? But let's listen to his speech really quickly.
And I and others had a chance to go see the Western Wall of the Temple Mount, the Western Wall tunnels, so much of the old city. And as you stand there, you can't help but behold the miracle before you. And it got me thinking about another miracle that I hope all of you don't see too far away. Because 1917 was a miracle, 1948 was a miracle, 1967 was a miracle, 2017, the declaration of Jerusalem as the capital was a miracle, and there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible.
Okay, so he is a Christian. He's not a Jew. But what he's saying is that he's come to Jerusalem and he's visited these Jewish holy sites. And he can't help be amazed, be awed by the beauty, the spirituality of the Western Wall. He also goes on to say that there's been a series of miracles, okay? So 1917 was the Balfour Declaration, when basically the British Empire permitted the Jews to found the nation state of Israel. 1948 was when Israel was founded. 1967 was when the
So again, right, like you heard in the video. So these people you see currently in Israel are not the biblical Israel. They are not God's people. You heard it. That Israel was founded 1948. Those are impostors. Came from Europe, went and drove the people, the Israelites, the true people of the Bible, killed them and settled them. They are the synagogues of Satan. Those who say they are Jew and are not, but they call themselves Jewish. They are the synagogues of Satan. So they are not the Jew, all right? They are not from the tribe of Judah. They are not the biblical Israelite. They are not. They claim, but they are not. You heard it. It was founded 1948 when they went and sat down in that land. And in fact, history tells us, right, when 1947, 1946, 1947, they went to Idi Amin Dada in Uganda. That Uganda you see today, that could have been the Israel. But Idi Amin Dada refused. And that was one of the reasons. I'm not saying the reason. One of the reasons they did not like Idi Amin Dada. And you know the West. The moment they don't like any of their leader, they make that person the boogeyman. And if you're not careful, you will look at your leader who is, in fact, doing the right thing as the boogeyman. And you go against that leader. Not because he's against you, but because he's against the West ideology. Evil plot. So Idi Amin Dada said, no, you cannot create Asia here. Let's continue. I will take this out for now. God. Let's take this out. We're about to start our show. Let me see if I can play a video, just 1 minute, and then I can, project. I can proceed, not project, but I can proceed with the discussion. But let me start with that to make it a little fresh. All right, let me see here. Hopefully I'll be able to get it. No, this is not what I want. It is something that I need. Bear with me. All right, I'm about to find it. Bear with me. I'm gonna get it. I want to start with that. If I don't get it, then we're gonna start. Don't worry. But I will still play that video. All right, I'm gonna start. I can't find it, but I'm still gonna play anyway. So don't worry. Okay. That is that. We're going to start with this video, right?
Every plantation with cotton on it. You know what plantation they've never shown us, Abby? The most prominent ones, the ones that were most profitable, the breeding plantations. Why don't you want to show us those? You know why? Because after the research that I did for this album, you realize that the moment that a girl menstruated, she was put in a stable where a horse would be and forcibly mated, forcibly raped by a male of the slave master's choice. And when she had children, they weren't called children, they were called a litter of pups. The punishment for raping or killing a person in medieval Spain is gelding. Gelding is when you take hot pincers and you take a man's balls and dick off root and stem. Killing a person, law of the Bible, right? Medieval Spain, super religious. You killed a man, he should be killed. Why were indigenous and black people categorized as subhuman? So under the law, you would not be punished for the things that you did to us. That's why. You used to be proud, right? Used to be proud, white America, of rape and murder. Used to be proud of colonization. Used to, wow, that made us tough. And then you got ashamed of it. And that's what you're dealing with. That's what America's dealing with, a schizophrenic crisis. There's a British manual.
Hold on. He just said something, right, folks? Forgive me. We're going to start the show. He just said something. He just said something. When African women African girls were being raped by Europe and America during slavery time. He said something, and black people were being raped. These folks had to create a law. But in creating that law, I want to make a connection here into 2026. I want to make a connection into 2026. Because everything that is happening currently into 2026, it happened in the 1600. It happened in the 1500. It happened in the 1700. It happened in the 1800. It happened in the 1900. It happened in the 2000. 2001, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or let's say 5 and 2026. And it's still happening. They made black people, African people, 3/5 of a lesser human being. That means in order not to charge the white man of a crime against black people, you cannot make the black man as equal to the white man. That means the black man will not be seen as a human being. So if they commit a crime against a black man, because the black man is not a human being, you cannot charge the white man for it. So that's why a white man could rape an African mother, an African sister, and even bug break an African brother. And even sold black babies to the alligator as bait for food. So they were never charged because the black man was never seen as human being. Because if they are seen as human being as equal to white, then that is a crime against humanity. You have to charge them. So that's why they say African people were 3/5 of a lesser human being. That means their dog were better than the black men. So you couldn't charge the black men. And that is current day today. To the extent the United States disprove for Africa to have a veto power. Because if Africa have a veto power, Africa will be seen as equal to Russia, to China, to the US, and to Europe. That means crime against a black man will be brought to justice. Do you understand the correlation? So nothing changed. These guys are so sophisticated in what they do. The same people, but different matter. Oh no! Linear tomography told us that the United States say, because she represents the US, she spoke for the US, Africa should not have a veto power. That was a statement. Because if Africa have a veto power, the United Nations will be dysfunctional. That was exactly the statement of Linear tomography. If Africa have a veto power, the United Nations will be dysfunctional. So that means let's still see black people, even though she's a black woman being used, they still see black people as 3/5 of a lesser human being. That is why things can go against Africa by the West. The United Nations will never talk because that clause is still in there. That is why you can never get a veto power. What the hell? Smaller nation with small population will have a veto power. But an African continent, billion plus people, does not have a veto power to represent its citizens. Does that make sense? And you see these stupid African bourgeoisie leaders sitting in Africa there, and they're coming to the United Nations speaking bullshit.
Right, that was taken out of the British Museum because within the manual, it talked about how rape was a weapon of war that should be used against the indigenous population. You're ashamed of that now. You're ashamed right? Who was Christopher Columbus? His image has been so whitewashed, but he was trafficking little girls on an island. Who does that sound like, huh? They've shown us every plantation with cotton on it. You know what plantation they've never shown us, Abby? The most prominent ones, the ones that were most profitable, the breeding plantations. Why don't you want to show us those? You know why? Because after the research that I did for this album, you realize that the moment that a girl menstruated, she was put in a stable where a horse would be and forcibly mated, forcibly raped by a male of the slave master's choice. And when she had children, they weren't called children, they were called a litter of pups. The punishment for raping or killing a person in medieval Spain is gelding. Gelding is when you take hot pincers and you take a man's balls and dick off root and stem. Killing a person, law of the Bible, right? Medieval Spain, super religious. Killed a man, he should be killed. Why were indigenous and black people categorized as subhuman? So under the law, you would
But everyone
not
has a different story to tell.
for the things
Michelle
that you did to
says
us.
it's losing.
That's why you used to be proud, right? You used to be proud, white America, rape is my right. You used to be proud of colonization. You used to, wow, that made us tough.
Precisely on the horn of
Then you
Africa.
got shamed. That's what you're dealing with. That's what America's dealing with, a schizophrenic crisis. There's a British manual, right, that was taken out of the British Museum because within the manual, it talked about how rape was a weapon of war that should be used against the indigenous population. You're ashamed of that now. You're ashamed, right? Who was Christopher Columbus? His image has been so whitewashed, but he was trafficking little girls on an island. Who does that sound like, huh? They've shown us every plantation with cotton.
All right, once again, how you guys doing? This is Frank. I am your host. This is the Revolutionary Repatriation Educational Lecture Series aspect of WCC. Once again, welcome. So, today's topic, it says, Africa stop praying for Israel or the West and unite. Oh, sorry, I said unite. Oh, what was I thinking? Anyways, it's unite. UNIT. It's not UNIT. It's not unit, but rather unite. Now, Africa, stop praying for Israel or the West and unite and build your army because you are next. This is WCC, where we are unapologetic of what we say, because what we say, it is the truth. No opinion. If we don't have the information as prepared, we skip that day to speak until we have everything. And then we come out, we speak. Africa, stop praying for Israel because Israel does not care about you. Africa, stop praying for the West because the West does not care about you. Don't get it twisted. What you should be praying for. Oh my God, today Sunday, I'm preaching. What you should be praying for is pray to have a unified African army. What you should be praying for is pray for African leader to leave from that delusional mindset of global unity with the West. What you should be praying for is for your leaders to start thinking that United States and Europe are good to them and that they can collaborate and fight the enemy. Who are your enemies? Have you identified your enemies? Because the United States enemy is not Africa's enemy. Israel enemy is not Africa enemy. And if you ask the US will tell you the same thing. Africa enemy is not the United States enemy. And if you ask Israel will tell you the same thing. Africa enemy is not Israel enemy. Africans, what you should be thinking of, you should be thinking that you are next. Africa, what you should be thinking of and praying for is unity among Black people, among African people. Africa, what you should be fasting and praying, right? Fasting, you're not eating. Do not fast for the West. Do not fast for America. Do not fast for Israel. Because these people have the military might. These people have the economic might. You don't have it. You don't have it. First of all, let me say this. If God is so loving, God loves the United States and Asia or Europe, and God does not like or love Africa. You know why? Because you fast and pray day and night. But yet they stay, look at your continent, you are a beggar. You beg. You beg the people who don't fast day and night. You beg the people who don't pray day and night. But come on, are you serious? God loved them more than they love Africa, more than they love Black people. They do not pray like you pray, but look at their economy. Look at their military might. What you should be praying for is what we Africans are doing. That we can rise, we can't go nowhere, we stay stuck. What are we missing? That's why you should be praying for. Pray for what you have been missing. Because the war is far ahead of you. There is no savior anywhere coming to free Africa or coming to die for Africans. There is no savior anywhere. Nobody died for you when you were in slavery. Nobody died for you when your continent was being colonized and divided, chopped like cake between Europe and America. They didn't want to come and fight and save you when they cut your continent like a cake. They came and assassinated all your great leaders. They didn't want coming to fight for you. Why would someone fight for you when they are the one behind the torture, the killing, the humiliation of your Messiah? Yes, Nkrumah was a Messiah. Thomas Sankara was a Messiah. Patrick Lumumba was a Messiah. Amilcar Cabral was a Messiah. Malcolm X was a Messiah. Marco Garvey was a Messiah. And the list can go on. Who brought them down? Let's continue here. Today, it's all videos. Because the reason why I have all these collections of videos, one video may not convince you. You have to hear collections of videos and evidence from different segments before you can understand the reality. Because that is exactly Black people. That is exactly Black people. They are so ingrained and ignorant. It takes them time for them to accept the truth. When even the truth is at their doorstep. Sometimes you have to die for the Black man before, when you are dead and gone, before they see the truth. But when you are alive and you are telling the Black man, this is blue and this is yellow, the Black man will tell you, no, this is not blue, this is not yellow, this is green, this is red. And then when you are dead and gone, then before they realize that, oh, this is blue and this is yellow. Oh, before they realize that, oh, you are saying the truth. Only the black men, but the other race, when their people tell them this is rare, they know it's red. But the black men, Kwame Ture should die before we believe Kwame Ture. Gaddafi should be killed, dead and buried before we believe Gaddafi. When the same people who killed Gaddafi came out and said, oh no, we did not kill Gaddafi because he killed his people or he ill-treated his people. We killed Gaddafi because of his great idea and plan for the African people to open the African people's eyes and minds. For Africa to be self-independent. And in our case, Europe and America will no longer subjugate Africa to steal and loot their resources. That's why we killed Gaddafi. Because we did not want for Africa to be independent, to have her own currency and control her own resources. And then before you believe it, that's African people. Now, like I said, today is video. Because some of you who said, now, this is not about Iran, I don't care. Iran can protect herself, and we will keep saying it here. Iran can, because Iran's smart. Iran can protect herself. Africa cannot protect herself. Africa cannot feed herself. The only thing African people know what to do is to pray. That's the only thing African people can supply the world with, prayers. The only thing African people can give to the world is fast and pray. The only thing African people can give to the world is to eat Jesus' blood or to drink Jesus' blood. The only thing African people can give to the world is to eat bread and say it's Jesus' body. The only thing African people can do for the world is to drink some alcohol and say it's Jesus Christ's blood. That's the only thing African people can do for the world, which benefit them not. And I repeat, which benefit them not. Let's continue here. So what you see in Iran, as you are being told, first of all, let me say this. You see the same thing they did in Libya, the United States and NATO did in Libya, run propaganda, made the people not to believe in Gaddafi, to think that Gaddafi was the bad man. That was the same thing they did in Iran. They went with fake propaganda. And then in less than no time, the people start protesting. Pay attention. The people of Iran start protesting against their government. And then before you look, because in order for the United States to just go into another country to do what they do, they first have to run a propaganda to make the citizens of that region, of that locality, of that nation, to believe in what the U.S. is saying and go against that government. And they do the same thing in the U.S. here. Before the United States go for war, the United States will first make the American people to believe that whosoever they are going against hate Americans. And then the American people have to have that in their mind that these people hate us. And then once that happens, they go in because they know their people, their citizens have already agreed, have been bought over. And then they can send their sons and daughters to go and fight an unknown war that they have no idea. So they did the same thing in Iran. Run fake propaganda. And then the people got on the street and start protesting. The country is hard. The economy is hard. They did the same thing in Liberia. And then they removed the past government and then put in another government. They orchestrated that. They ran propaganda. And the former ambassador McCarthy declared, he said, we heavily invested in propaganda media to remove President George Manawia. He may not have said it exactly to remove President George Manawia, but he said, we heavily invested in fake propaganda in this country. And they did that, they succeeded. That is what they do. And what you see in Iran was regime change. And you see, some regime change can lead to the death of your president. And so be it, so good. That did not happen to Liberia, but it was regime change in what you saw in Liberia. So not all regime change can lead to death, but some regime change can do lead to death according to, or looking at the situation, not according to, but looking at the attitude or the magnitude. Some can lead to assassination, and some can lead to kidnap, like what you saw in Venezuela, Maduro, that he kidnapped the Venezuela president. But again, the authority of that country agreed. The higher authority, his personal bodyguard, agreed. They were paid. And up to now, news that we have gotten, I think we showed that last week or so, Donald Trump have not yet paid the money. So those people that agree and they sold their president over for millions of dollars, they have not yet received it. And I don't know if Donald Trump going to pay or not. Because if Donald Trump paid, that's what evidence of kidnap. So that means everything he said about drugs from Venezuela is lie. Last week, you heard Larry C. Johnson, a former CIA. He said it. He said, what happened in Venezuela? It was not because the United States Army was sophisticated. Now, that is not to say the United States Army is not sophisticated. No, I'm not saying that. But what Larry C. Johnson said last week, as we showed it, former CIA analyst, he said what happened in Venezuela was not because the United States military was sophisticated, that it went in and kidnapped or got the Venezuela president. It was something that the authority, the major authority, his close bodyguard and things sold him up for millions of dollars. But Donald Trump have not yet paid that money. So it's still in question. So the day that in Iran created propaganda, fake news, and the ignorance of the people got on the street and said the country is tough, the country is hard, economy this, economy that. Oh, we are not benefiting from our oil. So forth. And after we know, the United States thought that, or Israel and the US thought everything was perfect, everything was clear, now they can go in. Because once they remove the president or kill the president, the people of Iran will back Israel and the US because of the propaganda, but it backfired. That did not happen. That did not become the case. And now things have fooled their mouth. So what you saw in Iran was regime change. Like how they've been doing it to Africa. African people, stop praying for Israel or stop praying for the West. Pray for Africa. Pray for your African leaders to stop being puppet. Pray for your African leaders to stop being bourgeoisie. Pray for your African leader to stop being slave. Pray for your African leaders to love Africa, to serve Africa, to die for Africa. Pray for your African leaders to stop going against another African nation only because those African leaders are fighting to be liberated. Those are the prayer you need to be doing if you can pray. Those are the fasting you need to be doing if you can fast. So-called stupid fasting and prayer you'll be doing around there, talking about you gotta fast for Israel. We need to pray for Israel. We need to fast for Israel. Did they tell you that Israel there is the biblical Israel? That is not the biblical Israel in the Bible. Because the biblical Israel in the Bible, according to prophecy, because of their disobedience according to prophecy in the Bible. Me, I'm not a Christian, but I read the Bible. First of all, Christian does not go by what is written in the Bible. Christianity is not about what is written in the Bible. So according to prophecy in the Bible, after the biblical Israelites disobeyed their God, The law and commandment, the constitution that was given to them, after they disobeyed it, their God cursed them and said they will have no might until their God can come back. So have their God come back? Because the current day Israel have might. They can bomb, they have nuclear weapons. They can challenge any nation. They can set up a bomb. They can set up and do regime change. They defend themselves. But the biblical Israel, when their God calls and they say, you will never defend yourself until I can come back. Let's continue. I'm not a Christian and I will never be a Christian. But I believe that Bible. I read that Bible. Let's continue. Regime change. Let's hear from the horse's mouth. Let's watch some video. Today is about video. So that you can see different people speaking.
Terrorists are the United States. Look what we did to Iraq. Look what we did to Libya. Libya, the most successful country in all of Africa. The guy created the eighth wonder of the world with the way how he delivered water and turned deserts into farmland. And everybody had a house and everybody had education and healthcare. And we turned it into a failed state run by terrorist markets. Who did that? Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton did that. And they'll never have to pay a price for that. The world's terrorists are the United States. Look what we did to Iraq. Look what we did to Libya. Libya, the most successful country in all of Africa. The guy created the eighth wonder of the world with the way how he delivered water and turned deserts into farmland. And everybody had a house and everybody had education and healthcare. And we turned it into a failed state run by terrorist markets. Who did that? Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton did that. And they'll never have to pay a price for that. The world's
what I'm about to show, right? He is a former United States Marine that was in Iraq. Hear his story. A short video.
Iran has had nuclear weapons since like the 90s. When I was in the military, we went to other places other than Iraq and Afghanistan. When it comes to Iraq, we were sold an entire lie on that of nuclear weapons of mass destruction, chemical warfare buildings, and all this and that. We had a mission going into a big warehouse where they believed weapons of mass destruction were being held at. Nothing was in there but chlorine, and we had dropped 2 500-pound bombs on it. The weapons of mass destruction they were talking about it was gold bars. Saddam Hussein had a lot of gold and even more oil. That was the weapons we were going after of mass destruction, the root of all evil.
That entire raid, it was all a lie, and it is proven, documented, and America just keeps moving on like, okay, who's next?
Right? Exactly. And you want me? I've been there. I was told that same lie, and I went there, and I saw the lie. You want me to believe this next one too, from the same people who already lied to me? Israel has been saying Iran has had nuclear weapons since like the 90s. When I was in the military, we went to other places other than Iraq and Afghanistan. When it comes to Iraq, we were sold an entire lie on that of nuclear weapons of mass destruction, chemical warfare buildings, and all this and that. We had a mission going into a big warehouse where they believed weapons of mass destruction were being held at. Nothing was in there but chlorine, and we had dropped 2 500-pound bombs on it. The weapons of mass destruction they were talking about it was gold bars. Saddam Hussein had a lot of gold and even more oil. That was the weapons we were going after of mass destruction, the root of all evil.
That entire raid, it was all a lie, and it is proven, documented, and America just keeps moving on like, okay, who's next?
Right? Exactly. And you want me? I've been there. I was told that same lie, and I went there.
I've been there. I was told the same lie. That was a United States Army veteran speaking, saying he was told the same lie about Iran today. That was the same lie about Iraq. Went in, drop bomb, kill millions of innocent people, destroy culture, destroy society, destroy civilization. And these are the same people who will sit and say they brought civilization to the West, to the world. Who will say Western civilization? Oh, Marco Rubio statement in Berlin, Germany. He said Europe and the United States civilization is the best. But you see their civilization is based on destruction, ruthless, not care for human's life. Their civilization destroyed Africa. Today, Africa is still suffering to grow from it. So you see a United States veteran saying they were lied to, and they went there, they dropped bombs, but they did not see nuclear weapon. What they saw was gold and oil. And he said the propaganda that was ran by the American media when they went in Iraq, they saw gold and oil. They did not see nuclear weapon. Americans lost their life for few elite to have Iraq gold and oil. Africa, be ready, be warned. You are next. Even though we've been subjugated, even though they've been looting our resources and killing our African leaders. But this time around, be warned, African. It is not just coming and killing African leaders one and then replace it. Let's continue. Be warned. Be warned. Listen to this again. Another EU representative, what he said that they've been doing to Africa, he said poverty created in Africa was because of Europe and US. That was their aim. That is what they've been doing. War created on the African continent was Europe and the US. That is what they've been doing. Listen to him. Listen to him. Listen, some of you so-called who believe in Europe and the US that they are the savior for Africa. How? When did they become a savior for Africa? The same people kill our savior, unalive our saviors. Today, our saviors are under 6 feet. And the current saviors that we have today, the same people want to take down those saviors. Then how can they become the savior again? For how? Explain that to me. That makes sense. Listen to this. Today is our video. Hear from the horses themselves mouth.
Down on Africans. For decades, Europe has been Africa's main partner. European leaders after European leaders made grand promises. They promised Africans peace, but what they saw was war. They promised prosperity, but what they saw was poverty. They saw underdevelopment.
What Europe and America gave to us, they promised prosperity, they promised globalizing, they promised, you name it. Because right now I'm lack of words that I can't even name those things the United States and Europe have been promising, going to the African continent, calling African leader for African summit, for US Africa summit, European Africa summit. But he is saying all that have been BS, have been lie, have been bullshit. What they have sold to us was poverty, was war, chaos, terrorist activities. How can they become the savior? Nigeria, how can these people come and die for you? Oh yeah, they are coming to fight for Christians. Christian, my fault.
For years, we have imposed unfair economic agreements and neoliberal reforms on Africans with grand promises once again. What is the net result today? African economy.
Now, these people are not saying it because they are fair to Africa. No. Let's get that straight. They are not saying it because they want to work with Africa now. No. Get that clear. They are not saying it because they are remorse or they are guilty in what they have done to African people. No. Don't get it twisted. They are saying it because African people are now becoming wise and wiser. They are saying that because African people are now realizing their ugly and evil deed. They are saying it because African people are now pulling out from them. They are saying it because they are now left vulnerable. They are saying it because they have no resources to take them for the next decade. They are saying it because they are seeing poverty knocking their door. They are saying it because they are seeing their continent, their nation becoming terror.
Remain largely dependent on the export of raw materials, 75% of their exports. Every year, Africa loses 76 billion euros to capital flight and tax evasion. And Africans, when they arrive in Europe, even with all their documents and passports in order, still risk being humiliated and sent back at the airports. And then you come and whine, saying, oh yes, but the Africans are turning to the Chinese. Well, of course, the Africans tell us they offer us a better deal, you know, and they respect us. You shouldn't whine because you're whining since you still want their resources and their wealth. Let's change course. Let's stop looking down on Africans. Let's stop seeing their wealth only as something to plunder. And let's launch fair trade and a partnership based on equality. Let's stop looking down on Africans. For decades, Europe has been Africa's main partner. European leaders after European leaders made grand promises. They promised Africans peace, but what they saw was war.
Let's continue. Today is video. All right, I will talk in between, but then we do the talking. Today is videos. Let's continue.
Media coverage of the Iran-Israel crisis, you might be witnessing a rather upside-down, topsy-turvy, bizarro view of the world, of reality. You're not being told everything. You're being given skewed perceptions. For example, if you're watching Western media coverage, you might come away with the impression that Iran attacked Israel out of the blue and Israel is responding, when it's the other way around. We all saw on Thursday night that it was Israel that launched an illegal act of aggression against Iran. Iran is the victim here, Israel is the aggressor, but in the Western media coverage, Israel is the victim always. Some other points you may miss while watching Western media coverage: for example, Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons, Israel does. Iran is a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT, Israel isn't. Iran has allowed IAEA inspectors into its country, Israel doesn't. It's a nuclear double standard that I raised with former Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister Danny Ayalon a few years back on my Al Jazeera English show Head to Head, in a clip that's recently gone viral again.
How many nuclear weapons does Israel have? Because experts say it's anywhere between 80 and 400.
So what? So what? Yeah, so what? Has Israel ever threatened?
Do you recognize the hypocrisy of Israel having a secret illicit nuclear weapons program that it won't open up its doors to and won't talk about, and then lecturing everyone else in the region about nuclear weapons?
Absolutely not. You know why?
You talked about hypocrisy. Let me ask again. If an Iranian guest came on my show and I asked him about Iran's nuclear program, he said, I don't know, I'm not going to talk about it. Would you be okay with that? You'd be outraged.
Of course.
And yet you sit here as a former minister of the Israeli government saying, I don't know.
Now, let me ask you, so-called Africans who like to pray for the West or Asia and don't pray for themselves. Let me ask you. And let me ask you, so-called African journalists who don't give proper reporting for the interest of the African continent and their very tiny, tiny, tiny countries, tiny, tiny colonial countries or nation. Let me ask you this question. Just from what you are seeing going on between Iraq, or Iran, not Iraq, sorry, around the United States and Israel, just from what you see going on, and just from this video that you are listening to about nuclear weapon, do you think the United States, Europe, or Israel, right, the people that led African people into slavery, the people that led black people into colonization and killed their great messiahs, do you think these people will want Africa to be powerful? Do you think these people will want Africa to have a unified military? Do you think these people will want for Africa to have a nuke, which of course Africa is supposed to be, because we are a continent. If tiny, 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 tiny little nations can have nuke, why can a continent, if not the first continent, or the largest, sorry, if not the largest continent, why can't it have a nuke? But you have these smaller nations around here have nuke, and Africa cannot have nuke. A continent with billion people, and you have these tiny, tiny little nation that does not reach billion have nuke, but a continent with billion plus people does not have nuke to protect itself. Just look at this interview and ask yourself, something wrong somewhere. Why will these people don't want for other nations to be powerful? Because you know what? These nations does not fight a nation that fight back. So that is why Iran surprised them. They are surprised that what? We did not expect this from Iran. But Iran said they've been preparing. African people, are you preparing? Africans leaders, are you preparing? Because you are not preparing. Rather, you want to go Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso to go do what? Do United States Daddy D and Europe Daddy D. Stupidity in higher places. Your brothers and sisters in the Shahid are preparing. But you want to be stupid and dumb.
Never talked about nukes with
because there was like 16 United Nations Security Council resolutions against Iran.
And there is against Israel. And there is against Israel as well.
About
your nuclear
issues?
program.
No.
Yes, there is. UN Resolution 487. Let me read it to you. The UN Security Council in 1981 says, calls upon Israel urgently to place its nuclear facilities under the safeguards of the IAEA. Why haven't you done that?
Because
there you have it, the nuclear double standard. Israel violates multiple UN Security Council resolutions when it comes to its own stockpile of nuclear weapons. And yet Western media interviewers who have multiple Israelis on air all the time never really ask about this, never really ask about Israel's nukes. Why? I get why Israel wants to maintain its policy of nuclear ambiguity, of not confirming or denying that it has nukes. But why does the US media, the UK media, the Canadian media, why do they all have to go along with it?
Let's continue.
Murder and mayhem that we've created around the world is just unbelievable. You know, I was looking at a study the other day put out by Lancet, which is a scientific journal, and they did a study. This was put out, you can see it on the internet. It was put out in November of 2025. And what the article did was it looked at sanctions, American sanctions, from 1971 to 2021. 1971 to 2021. And it asked what were the consequences of those sanctions. And we murdered 38 million people. 38 million people. The amount of havoc we have wrought on the Middle East in recent years is just stunning. If you think about the consequences of the Iraq War, what we do in places like Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, you understand we're using this tremendous economic leverage we have to basically starve people, to make them suffer, to inflict great punishment.
Now, you hear it. They use their economic power, their monetary power, IMF, World Bank, and things to inflict pain on people. Sanctions is pain. And then the people go hungry. Poverty kill them. The only alternative for them is to go in some building and say they are fasting and praying. But yet then still God can come to defeat the enemies that put sanction on them. Go and fast and pray, but yet then still God can come to tell them, listen, stop praying, stop fasting, go and grow your own food. Because when they put sanction on you, it means you can't feed yourself, because those that put sanction on you, you depend on them for you to eat, to feed you. And when they put sanction, they don't bring food. God don't come to them, but they go in some building and say, we praying and fasting. So God cannot speak to you that, you know what? You need to go grow your own food. God can speak to you that listen, you need to unify and unite and build your army. God can speak to you and say, listen, you need to have a strong currency backed by your natural resources and start depending on United States dollar to trade your resources, even though you do not have control of your resources out. Why God can speak to you? What kind of God are you serving? And what kind of God are you praying to? So you listen to what he said here. Millions of people died. Are these the people that are coming to fight for you? Are these the people that are coming to provide democracy for you? Democracy, my foot. Western democracy is evil, demonic, and deadliest. Western democracy is not about humanity. It's about American foreign policy to prevail. It's about European foreign policy to prevail. That is democracy for you. Not for the people, but against the will of the people. Against the interest of the people. That is the definition of Western democracy. That is the definition of the United States democracy in another country. The definition of United States democracy in another country is a democracy against the will of the people, against the belief of the people, against the understanding of the people, against the power of the people. That is the definition of Europe and Western democracy.
On them so that they'll rise up against their government. You understand that this is what we're doing in Venezuela. This is what we're doing in Iran. We're inflicting massive punishment on these people. Given all that, I find it very difficult to talk about the United States as a noble country. I just don't think that we are exceptionally virtuous when it comes to foreign policy.
Let's continue. We will hear from the horses themselves mouth. Let's continue.
Is the war continuing or is it over? And he goes, well, you know, I don't really want to see it continue, but maybe that's a better question for BB. You're like, what? Wait, what? Oh, I'm sorry. You're like, well, my boss is right here, so you might as well ask him.
Or do those talks need to happen before you? Well, I would say that the best man to answer that is the Prime Minister.
But I will tell you that, in my view, I hope it's over.
Is your Palestinian relocation plan still on the table?
Yeah, Bibi, why don't I let you answer that question?
Do you think that there can be a two-state solution that creates an independent?
I don't know. I'd ask Bibi that question. You have the greatest man in the world to answer that.
Jeffrey Sachs, who I love, he said, I regard Netanyahu as the worst U.S. president of my lifetime, which is a very funny line.
I regard Netanyahu as having been our greatest disastrous president of the 21st century because he ran American foreign policy for 20 years and he cost us trillions of dollars.
Not even hiding it anymore. Just saying the quiet part out loud for everybody to know and understand at this point. Like, I genuinely don't know what more people need to see.
Let me just give you a wake-up call here. Everything I'm about to say is absolutely true. And if you doubt anything that I'm saying, you have a computer, you have a search engine, you have access to the internet, you can go verify everything I'm saying. Israel, modern Israel, is the abortion capital of the world. In Israel, you can kill the baby in the womb of the mother up until the very moment that that baby is born. Up until the very moment of delivery, you can legally kill that baby. And not only that, the Israeli government will pay for the abortion of every Israeli woman. Full-term abortions paid for by the state of Israel. Do we hear anything from the Family Research Council, Focus on the Family, or any other so-called conservative Christian pro-life, pro-family organization about Israel being the abortion capital of the world? Anything about, they talk about Democrats, they talk about pro-abortion this candidate, pro-abortion that politician, pro-abortion this, pro-abortion that. Yet, when it comes to the abortion capital of the world, Israel, they will say nothing. Hypocrites to the core. It's because they have an agenda. And the agenda is lining their own pockets with the money that they receive from Zionist donors. And the Zionist donors give them that money so they will keep their mouths shut. And that's exactly what they do. But it doesn't end there. Tel Aviv, not San Francisco, is the homosexual capital of the world. Did you know that?
And Tel Aviv is where Iran also bomb and destroy. So, African, are you guys still praying and fasting for Israel? Crazy.
Check it out. Tel Aviv is the homosexual capital of the world. Israel is the mafia crime capital of the world. Israel is the sex trafficking.
So Africans, are you praying for the mafia crime center of the world? Are you praying for them? Oh my God. Are you praying for the mafia of the world? You heard it. The mafia of the world. Are you praying for them? So you pray for criminals. You so-called Africans, you guys fast and pray for criminals. I see why Africa is like that. I see why Africa cannot develop. I see why Africa cannot move on. Because you pray day and night. You fast day and night to your God that you serve for criminals, for mafia. How can God bless you for Africa to move on once you are praying and fasting for mafia, for criminals? I see. You guys are the problem.
Capital of the world. Jeffrey Epstein is just one of many. Mossad agents involved in sex trafficking for the purpose of bribing powerful politicians all over the world. Israel is the warfare capital of the world. Most of the wars that America has been involved in since World War II has been directly because of Israel. For all intents and purposes, America's military is a proxy army for Israel. We are fighting Israel's wars, Israel's so-called enemies. Israel is the genocide capital of the world. Do you know that since Israel...
So again, African leaders, why are you praying for the genocide capital of the world? So you fast and pray for murderer. So that means bloods our own African people's hands who are fast and praying for the murderer capital of the world. That is what God can bless Africa. Even though we have the abundant resources, but we are so dumb and stupid because we have those curses on us. We prayed for the wrong thing. We fast for the wrong thing. We look somewhere else for the wrong thing. While we need to look on the other side for the right thing, we are looking to the wrong places for the wrong thing. Or for the right thing. We look into the wrong places. The murderer capital of the world. He said you are fasting and praying for them. Are they God's people? How can God people behave like that? Can't you see God's people? God's people are still saying, even though with all the atrocity caused against God's people are still saying, we love the people who caused these atrocity. Are you seeing who are God's people? God's people went into slavery, but God's people are still saying, you know what? Those that pour into slavery, we still love them. It is unto God who curse us and say we will go into slavery to our enemies to come and deal with them, not us. We still love them. We will live with them. We will eat with them. We will share with them. Don't you know God's people? God's people are the people who their continent was divided like a cake, but yet they stay the same people that divide the continent, God's people continent. Those people still say, we welcome you on our continent. We are not against you. It is unto God to come and judge you. Those are God's people. People who went in DRC Congo and chopped off people's hands, chopped off their legs. Only because they couldn't produce more resources as they wanted. They couldn't tap more rubber as they wanted. King Leopold, that evil man, chopped off their hands. Those are God's people whose hands were chopped off. But go to DRC Congo today. You have, it is the catalyst capital of Africa. And African people still sit mute and not doing nothing. And don't question them. Those are God's people that were cursed. And those people you say you are fast and praying for. Not those people there who you go in Asia, then you go and bed out to a war and then listen to a war and then people come and laugh. Those are sinning ghosts of Satan. They are Satan.
Israel became a state in 1948. Over 5 million Palestinians have been killed by Zionist Israel. 5 million. That's a genocide. Yet Hagee and his ilk would tell us that the Ashkenazi Khazarian Jews, most of whom are atheists, living in Palestine today, are God's chosen people.
Now, when someone says, so now you heard it. He's saying those people in Asia are not God's chosen people. That is why he said, and what did he use? Khazarian or something. They came from Europe. And you heard what he said? They said they are God's chosen people. In quote, that is, he's trying to say they are not. They say they are not. So that means the Bible again is right. Those who say they are Jew, they are not, but they are what? Sending gods of Satan. Continue, African people. You read the Bible, you don't understand what you read. You preach, you don't understand what you preach. You pray, you don't understand what you pray. You fast, you don't understand what you fast. You don't understand who God's people are. You refer to synagogues of Satan as God's people. That is why God is angry with you. That is why God is angry with Africa. Then you wonder why Africa can go nowhere. You still have these curses on you because you don't think right.
Really? Are you beginning to see the fallacy of it all? Are you beginning to see the foolishness of it all? Are you beginning to realize that somebody is trying to distort truth and propagandize and cause us to believe something that is in direct violation to everything that is of God and everything that is of our Constitution?
Now, because I have played a few couple of videos, right? Let's switch a little bit. We're going to come to those couple of videos. Let's see something here. Be with me. Let's see something here. Let's go back to Iran, right? We stay in Iran, but let's see something here. Let's see something. Let's see something here. African people, prayed for Africa and African people. Pray for Black people because you have nothing. Economy, weak, nothing. Military, weak, nothing. Currency, weak, nothing. Control of resources, weak, nothing. Control of your continent, your own land, weak, nothing. What do you have? You cannot protect what you have. You are nothing but like a spittle. You know spittle in the Bible? Spittle is like a bubble bob. Like, right? It comes from your mouth, bubble bob. And then once it get in the air, it's thin. You can pick it or you can see it. That's how you so-called Africans are. So-called leaders calling themselves African leaders. We do not have leaders on the African continent apart from the Sahel nation, period.
The supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, his statement was the first since he was elected by the Assembly of Experts. It was read on Iranian television. He called for unity among Iranians, and he said the martyrs will be avenged. And he also called on all US bases in the Persian Gulf to be closed immediately, or they will continue to be attacked. He said the Straits of Hormuz, that vital sea route, will remain closed. Seems like he's taking a very hard line, not in the mood for any kind of compromise or negotiation. Given that, where do you see this heading?
Well, what kind of negotiation? Iran tried to negotiate twice. Both times it was bombed by Israel and the United States. Iran is under a absolutely brutal attack. It's under carpet bombing. The U.S. and Israel are destroying infrastructure. They murdered this man's father and the leaders of the Iranian government. They are killing thousands of people. So exactly what is to be negotiated? This is a brutal war of aggression by Israel and the United States, and Iran is responding. And it's not surprising that they are responding. They're under threat of conquest, basically. That was what Trump said, that he would pick the new leader, that Israel and the United States would run Iran. Well, the Iranian people have a different view, clearly. They're showing up by the millions to say that they don't want to be run by the United States and Israel.
Right, and President Trump is also claiming that the United States has won this war. That's what he says. Yet we see the missile attacks continue by Iran, by Israel, by the United States. I mean, do you envision any scenario in which the United States can declare victory when we don't even know what its objective is?
Well, yes, I see a scenario where they can declare victory. Trump does so. He says things for the immediate moment or for show or because he believes them. We're never absolutely sure which it is. But is there a way to real victory by the United States? No, this is a disaster for the United States. It is a disaster for the whole world. The U.S. and Israel have thrown the entire world into turmoil, perhaps into World War III. This was a brazen, violent, ill thought out, I mean, to say the least, move by these two countries. And now we're all suffering the consequences of this.
You say we could be in World War III. There are already more than a dozen countries involved in this conflict, most of them in the Persian Gulf. Do you see it expand to other parts of the world as well?
Well, the United States is at war in many places. It is at war in the Western Hemisphere. It invaded Venezuela. It's talking openly about invading Cuba, which it's currently blockading. Trump just met with Latin American leaders and talked about other military operations in the Western Hemisphere. Trump has threatened to invade Greenland. The United States is still heavily engaged in war with Russia in Ukraine. We have war spreading through the Middle East. Israel is invading more countries. We have the war of Pakistan and Afghanistan taking place. We don't know, but it could be that when we look back even in weeks or months, we say, yes, World War III has started. The United States is so reckless, so irresponsible, and led by such a delusional president right now that I'm sorry to say that anything is possible.
There are more than 1,500 Iranians who've been killed in this conflict so far, but we're also facing another crisis, that is an energy crisis. The world is facing an energy crisis right now. Oil prices are spiking. Energy experts say the full impact of this is yet to come, and we've just heard from the International Energy Agency, which says that this is the worst energy supply disruption in history. How will this affect and impact the global economy?
The way it's going, this year will be an economic catastrophe if this continues, and it looks like it will continue. We know that there are massive disruptions of oil supply. That's the point that the International Energy Agency just made. We know that only selective tankers are passing through the Strait of Hormuz, those that Iran is allowing to pass through for China and reportedly for India. But we know that there is a dramatic decline in availability of both natural gas and oil. And history has shown, especially in the 1970s, when there were two such oil supply disruptions, that the consequences for the world economy are extremely severe, sharp, and relatively rapid in arriving. So I think we're in for a very, very significant global crisis brought to you by Israel and the United States.
One strategy the Iranians are using, and some call it an asymmetric strategy, is to hit U.S. Persian Gulf allies, many of which host United States bases, of course. Iran is hurting their economies by targeting their oil supplies and oil infrastructure. It's also targeting vital energy industries. What do you make of this strategy by Iran and its effectiveness?
Well, Iran has been hit repeatedly by the United States and Israel, actually for decades. We can go back to 1953 when the United States deposed a democratically elected prime minister and brought in a police state for several decades. We can go to the war that the United States supported against Iran by Iraq in the 1980s. We can go to a long list of assassinations by Mossad and the CIA in recent years. What Iran is saying is we are under attack. This is existential. And the countries in the Gulf, by hosting the enemy of our country that is trying to destroy us, are part of this war against us. Now, Iran has said, and the new supreme leader has said, that this is not a war against the neighbors. It is a war against the United States, which is trying to destroy Iran. And just listen to any of the words of Trump or Netanyahu. It's not hidden. It's very, very brazen. Who will run Iran? Trump or the Iranians? This is what's at stake. So from the Iranian position, this is existential. If the world stood up and told Mr. Trump, go home, you're not going to pick the supreme leader, and said to Netanyahu, live within your borders, stop making so many wars in the region, it would help us to get past this very, very dire crisis.
To what extent did both the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as President Trump underestimate the Iranian military, not just its battlefield effectiveness, but also the strategies that it is using? It is taking on two countries, both nuclear-armed countries in this conflict, vastly superior military forces.
The United States, during my entire lifetime, which is getting on, has underestimated its adversaries from Vietnam onward. The United States repeatedly has declared victory in days or weeks, only to find that the wars extended years or decades, with the United States crawling back home afterwards, having failed in all of its stated objectives and having squandered trillions of dollars and cost hundreds of thousands of lives. So this is very common. Yes, they completely misjudged Iran. Totally. They said so, that this would be one decapitation strike, that people would come out on the streets against the regime. Trump would pick the new leader. This is the fantasy world of American leaders, especially Trump, who has the most delusional perspective of all. But we've had many presidents that are quite delusional in this regard. They are so drunk with military power that they completely misjudge the rest of the world.
As I mentioned, more than 1,500 Iranians have been killed in the conflict so far. That also includes 168 school children who were killed in perhaps the most egregious of those attacks, when their school was attacked in the south of the country. Preliminary investigations show that the United States was responsible for killing those children. It was one of its missiles that landed on that school. We look at South Lebanon, where the Israelis have been bombing the Lebanese there. 200 children have been killed there. And I was wondering, to what extent, or how great is the risk, the likelihood that we could see Israel do to Tehran and Iran what it has done in Gaza?
Yes, Israel has committed a genocide in Gaza because its doctrine is kill its adversaries, kill them in mass numbers, kill the civilians, kill the women, kill the children. This is the Israeli doctrine of war. They don't discriminate between civilians and military targets. They leveled Gaza. They destroyed all its infrastructure. They destroyed all the schools, the clinics, the mosques, the hospitals, the housing, the water, the sanitation. And we don't know the full death toll, but it almost surely is in the hundreds of thousands if you take not only the bodies that have been collected, which come to around 80,000, and those under the rubble, but people who have died of exposure, of lack of safe water, of nutrition, lack of access to health care, and so forth. This is a brutal regime. I'm sorry to say it. It's terrible. It is a rogue, brutal regime. It's doing the same in Lebanon now, and it's doing the same with its carpet bombing of Tehran in Iran. And the world needs to stand up and stop accepting this as something even remotely normal or acceptable. Israel needs to go home and live within its own borders and get its head together again, because it's acting in a completely insane way. It needs to stop this. This is mass murder with US complicity. So this is something that absolutely needs to stop.
Jeffrey, as you point out, the world needs to stand up and stop this. But when we look at the number of children, for instance, that have been killed and the fact that it's not receiving wide attention in the media, I mean, is there also a danger that the killing, the murder of children in this way, mass murder, as you point out, is being normalized?
It has been normalized because, at least in my country, in the United States, and in much of Europe, and thanks to CGTN for telling the news as it really is, our so-called legacy media or mainstream media do not report the truth. And we are subject to so much propaganda all the time, so much normalization. It's beyond imagining for me. I attended a UN Security Council meeting a week ago, the day, more than a week ago, the day that the bombing started. And what did all the Western countries do? They attacked Iran for being bombed. You know, this is propaganda. This is so-called narrative control. So yes, mass murder has been normalized. You're told, oh, if you say that Israel committed a genocide, oh, that's anti-Semitic. It's not only not anti-Semitic, it has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It is the grim reality that needs to be understood so that it doesn't continue to happen.
President Trump is not discounting the option of a land invasion. And of course, this recalls the Iraq invasion. But if we look at Iran, Iran is much bigger. It's a mountainous country. It will not be an easy country for anyone who invades on the ground. I mean, this could result in massive US casualties, couldn't it?
I don't believe it. I think Trump is full of it in general, and I don't believe this can happen. You know, when the Iraq War happened, the American people were lied to relentlessly. We know it wasn't an error of judgment or doubt. It was direct lies, propaganda, that there were weapons of mass destruction that needed to be taken out. It was the excuse for war. At that time, the American people supported the war. Now, the American people are completely against what Donald Trump is doing. And that opposition will rise over time as their gas prices go up and as their incomes go down and as their jobs disappear and so on. So for Trump even to think about putting troops on the ground, the political explosion that would happen in the United States would be absolutely enormous. So he's just facing the fact that every miscalculation has come to pass because he's delusional, because he has no strategy, because the whole group of them has no strategy. But I do not believe that there will be boots on the ground because, as you say, it would be a disaster and it would start in the stark opposition of the American people.
When we look at the US history of military assaults, invasions, assassinations, just in the past 25 years, it's left a trail of mass death and destruction. How would you describe the damage and destruction the US has left in the wake of what's been referred to as the Americans' forever wars?
Well, 30 years ago, Benjamin Netanyahu, when he became prime minister of Israel, with his American advisors, launched a project called Clean Break. The idea of Clean Break, everyone should understand, is to prevent permanently a state of Palestine alongside the state of Israel. So it's based on a criminality because it is international law that there needs to be a state of Palestine alongside the state of Israel. But the purpose of Clean Break was to say any government in the Middle
So listen to this. So who came out with that law? So Africans, listen to this, right? Let me say this. The United States does not care about you. Europe does not care about you. Asia does not care about you. Who said there shouldn't be a state called Palestine near Israel? Was it God? Who came out with that? They came out with that. That there shouldn't be a state in Palestine that will be close to Israel. So today, as you can see, Palestine, it was their aim to destroy Palestine, to extend Israel to Palestine. Wow.
Middle East or North Africa or the Horn of Africa that supports the Palestinian cause and supports resistance, we're going to overthrow. And that is why there are so many wars, because
so you know what Jeffrey Epstein said? The Horn of Africa. And if you look at it, I think we spoke about this the last time, the Horn of Africa. Now you heard it. Those who support, you see, the thing here is not even about supporting Iran, right? It's about looking at the truth and speaking the truth. So what Asia is saying, you see, Africans, you guys should go and pray and fast for stupidity in the higher places. So what Asia is saying, along with the United States, right? They don't care whether the United States is wrong, whether Asia is wrong, but you should support them. Once you go against them, they are coming for you. They are coming to bomb and kill you and loot and steal your resources and take your land and destroy everything. You heard what he said? You heard what Jeffrey Epstein said? The Horn of... And do you understand the Horn of Africa? Is around that place the United States have Djibouti or coming down to Somaliland. My God. Coming down to Somalia, the Horn of Africa. Africa. All right, let's continue.
Greater Israel delusion of Netanyahu and the American complicity has led to wars in Libya, Sudan, Somalia, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and now Iran. That's part of the doctrine. And it's crazy. Instead of just having a Palestinian state alongside the state of Israel, according to international law, we have wars across the Middle East that have claimed hundreds of thousands, millions, most likely, of lives and have gone on for 30 years now.
Professor Jeffrey Sachs, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
My name is Chef Tajani, and what I'm about.
So, you heard it in what Jeffrey said. A hint to a wise is insufficient. What is well understood cannot be explained. I think you got it, right? Not to waste time. Let's continue again to the video. Let's get some critical video. Then we will dash back again to Israel, right? We are connecting the dots. You African, go and sit and be sitting and watching while people are preparing for what is coming, for what is ahead. People are preparing. It is only the African continent with their so-called bourgeoisie leaders and slave leaders who are sitting and waiting for their master, the United States, their master, Europe, their master, Israel, to come and fight and save them. Wow. When they were putting you in chain, did they save you? Wow. When they were raping your mothers, your sisters, our African mothers, did they save you? Wow. When they were dividing Africa as a cake, did they save you? Wow. When Marco Rubio gave a speech recently in Germany, was it about coming to save you, or it is about coming to re-enslave Africa and re-colonize Africa and then rape African mothers, sisters, and then break Africans, fathers and brothers? Because there's nothing in Marco Rubio's speech. In fact, he said they are unapologetic about what their forefather did and what they can redo again to African people. Who is coming to save you? As far as I know, according to history, no other race have gone to die for another race. According to history, no other race have gone to die for another race. Even Jesus himself did not die for any other race. Jesus himself died for his race. Jesus himself died for his lineage. Jesus did not die for people that was not in his lineage. If you are not part of the lineage of Abraham, he did not die for you. If you are not part of the lineage of Jacob, who his name was changed to Israel, he did not die for you. There's no time in history. And that is why even before Jesus was born, it was already prophesied in Matthew 15:24 as who he was coming to die for. It was already prophesied. And because it was prophesied, the prophecy would be the prophecy. That was the people he died for. He did not die for no one. So there is nowhere in history another race, another lineage died for another lineage to survive. No way. You can never find it. It never happened anywhere. Only African people. Oh my God. Let's continue. Fast and pray. For who? Let's continue.
He's doing because he has no choice but to do. If Donald Trump goes against the Zionist agenda, he will go to jail for the rest of his life for being complicit in the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. People are saying Donald Trump said no new wars. Donald Trump said, why are we fighting other people's battles? If the war isn't important for America, why are we getting in it? But now you see him, he completely contradicted himself. You just bombed Nigeria. You bombed and invaded Venezuela, kidnapped the president. You sending threats to Iran that you're going to bomb them on behalf of the Zionists in Israel. Why is Donald Trump dancing to a different drum than the one he played when he campaigned for presidency of the United States the second term? Because he didn't know the Zionists had a blackmail card on him. Donald Trump has to do exactly what they tell him to do, or he will go to jail for the rest of his life. Not because he participated necessarily, but because he had knowledge of it and did nothing about it. There's a viral video of Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. I think they're at the White House, and Donald Trump pulls his chair out, and then he sits down and he pushes his chair, and he was basically being subservient to Netanyahu. You've never seen Donald Trump as arrogant and narcissistic as he is. You've never seen him be subservient to any man. That's the first time I've seen Donald Trump be subservient in his life. Why is he bowing down to Netanyahu? Because they got the blackmail card, Epstein Island.
Let's continue. Let's go ahead. Another video.
If you decapitate the regime, you bring down Khamenei, the people will rise up. I mean, he actually believed this. And then he bragged about it. I mean, openly bragged about how I am tracking Khamenei. He should leave the country because I'm going to kill him. Does he not understand that Ali Khamenei volunteered to die on the first day of the war? Ali Khamenei was at home in his residence, knowing he was being hunted down by the United States, knowing he was being targeted by death. He was surrounded by fellow shaheeds who also knew that they were going to die, but they also understood that there was a purpose in their death, because by dying, they entered into martyrdom. And the Iranian people are in the streets, but they're not shouting death to Khamenei. They're shouting long live the martyr Khamenei. That's why we lost the war on day one. This was a trap set by the Iranians on day one by a people of faith. Donald Trump wouldn't even know what a Shia is or what a Twelver is. He doesn't know who Hussein is. He doesn't know who Ali is. He has no clue what the Battle of Karbala is. And yet he fell into a trap where all of this is relevant. He assassinated or facilitated the murder of the second most important man in the Shia faith, Ali Khamenei. This is the equivalent of killing the Pope if you're Catholic, killing the Archbishop of Canterbury if you're British, killing the head of the Orthodox Church, Kirill, if you are Russian. And Donald Trump doesn't understand this. If the purpose of this operation was to get the Iranian people in the street, Donald Trump succeeded. But he got the wrong people in the street for the wrong cause. The people of Iran today are rallying in support of the Islamic Republic. The Islamic Republic is invincible at this moment because you can't kill people who are ready to die for their cause. And the Shia of Iran who are defending the Islamic Republic are prepared to a man, to a woman, to become martyrs in the cause of their faith. And it is the Islamic Republic of Iran that they are defending, not just their land, not just their culture, not just their history, but their faith. Donald Trump lost this war, the first missiles that impacted the ground in Tehran.
APAC. A lot of people think that. The evidence is there. The evidence is all there. It's come on. We send $18 billion a year to Israel. Why? Just ask the question, what do we get out of it?
Nothing.
We get nothing. Are we doing humanitarian work? No, they're charged with genocide. They're killing off Palestinians. Are we helping them survive? Well, they've got a higher standard of living than we do, a longer lifespan than we do, free education, free housing, free healthcare, but we're sending them money. Why? Ask yourself why a U.S. congressman can wear an Israeli military uniform in congressional chambers. I would think that would be an act of treason. But they did. Nobody said anything. Ask why the Israeli prime minister can bypass the president, fly directly in and speak to our Congress without any other government interaction.
I didn't know that could happen.
Oh yeah, Netanyahu did. Flew straight in, bypassed the president, talked to the Congress. Congress gave him 26 standing ovations. I think most pop stars would like 26 standing ovations. Our Congress gave Netanyahu, a foreign prime minister, 26 standing ovations. I have difficulty looking at that in any other way than we're occupied.
Okay, you heard that right. Every year, the United States gave 18 billion, B, not M, not million. Every year, right? The United States gave $18 billion to Israel. Every year. All right. And once upon a time, and I think we did report on it. We did report on it when Israel started bombing Palestine and Gaza, right? With the support of the United States. We did report on it. When Netanyahu said, after they are done with Palestine and Gaza, Africa will be next. And imagine this, if Israel is the one dictating to the United States to do stuff, and Israel came out and said, after we destroy Palestine, after we kill the Palestinian, after we have killed their babies, men and women, when they are dead and gone, and then when we have seized Palestine and made Palestine part of Israel, he made that statement and said, when we are done, Africa will be next. Now, if the United States is working on the commands of Israel, and Israel is saying Africa will be next, why are African people praying for Israel? Knowing very well that when Israel said Africa will be next, and Israel is about to go to destroy and kill Africans, the United States is going to fall. The United States is going to follow Israel to go and destroy and kill Africans, because the United States, as it has been alleged, let's put it this way, as it has been alleged, work on a demand, a command, demand and command of Israel. Africa, who is coming to save you? Who is coming to fight for you? Are you praying for the West? Are you praying for Israel? You should be delusional. Let's continue to the next.
Secretary Bessent shamelessly boasting about causing economic chaos in Iran. Watch this.
President Trump ordered Treasury and our OFAC division, Office of Foreign Asset Control, to put maximum pressure on Iran, and it's worked, because in December, their economy collapsed. We saw a major bank go under.
So, before the beginning of this video, I told you that when you saw the Iranian citizens protesting against a government, it was because of propaganda by by the United States and Israel. And now it has been confirmed here. This was what they did in Liberia, and this is what they do in other countries. Before they went to Iran to kill the president, they ran propaganda media, propaganda fake, news. And by the ignorance of the people, they got on the street. Because they wanted for the Iranian to believe in their action, that what the United States did is good. So they ran propaganda unknown to the people got on the street, but thinking that when they killed the president or when they removed the president, the people will support them. So you heard what he said. They went there, ran fake propaganda, and the people believe it. So now it was time for them to go after they felt comfortable, but not knowing this was going to backfire. You see?
The central bank has started to print money. There is a dollar shortage. They are not able to get imports. And this is why the people took to the street. So this is economic statecraft. No shots fired. And things are moving in a very...
You heard what he said? That was economic statecraft. It was crafted. And he said, right, economic statecraft, because their banks collapse, their this collapse, and that's what they do to Africa. Because first of all, Africa is not powerful in finances. Africa is not powerful economically. So when they do these things, they will collapse. And then the government in African countries cannot provide for their citizens. And their citizens are not aware of what the United States and Europe and Asia do. So what then happened? The people go against their government, not knowing their government actually fighting for them. This happened mostly in African country. It happened in Liberia from the past regime with their propaganda. And because our people are not aware, once they hear the United States, once they say, oh, the white man has spoken. America has spoken, it's true. Europe has spoken, it's true. And this goes to all African black nations. We still believe in this white pale skin. When they speak, we say it's true. When they speak, we say heaven has spoken. We believe in everything they say. We don't do judgment. We don't check. We don't rationalize our thought and say, you know what? Are these people saying the truth according to history, what they have done? We don't do that. So you heard what he said. They deliberately went to Iran to shut down the economic, everything, and everything was shut down. And then he said it was working. Now, when they saw the people on the street, it was time for them to go in to do regime change. But that did not happen. You see?
Positive way here.
Here he is, shamelessly and, as you say, unambiguously admitting the misery that he caused.
Not one of our mainstream media accurately reported any of this. They all reported the official propaganda of the US government that people came out on the streets to protest the mismanagement of the Iranian regime. This is simply a game. Of course, it's a game where you need to know something. And our reporters are generally either ignorant because they're not paying attention, they don't do homework, or they're guided by their editors who are in cahoots with the CIA, with the Treasury Department, with the White House, because that's how they get their stories and their sources. And so the most basic fact of what happened in Iran in recent weeks was that the United States used economic warfare to destroy the Iranian economy, and it continues to do so. And Mr. Besant said, it's all going in a positive direction. Then he had that fleeting little smirk on his face. The goal is regime change. The goal is that the New York Times will dutifully report that the people rose up against their terrible government without mentioning anything about the economic warfare by the United States. Absolutely illegal, absolutely disastrous, crushing the lives, the livelihoods, the health, leading to deaths on mass numbers, we know from these sanctions that have been used by the United States in this way in many countries to destroy other countries. Venezuela is another case of this.
This entire war came from. It did not come from Bashar al-Assad. It came from Washington. There was a decision in 2011 to overthrow Assad. Actually, that came from Jerusalem. This has been a desire of the Israeli government that stretches back more than 25 years. Netanyahu's idea is make the Middle East in Israel's image, overthrow every government that opposes Israel. He's had a friend in that, and that is the CIA and the United States government. So this war in Syria did not come from Assad's repression. It did not come from Assad's dictatorship. This war came from a presidential order by Obama to overthrow Assad, starting in the spring of 2011. We have a name for this program. It was Operation Timber Sycamore. The United States, together with other countries in this region, trained fighters, especially jihadists.
So you heard what Jeffrey Epstein said. The United States trained jihadi in the Middle East against Syria, against Assad. Is that strange? Are these not the same people, according to many statements now that we have shown videos and evidences, article from even from U.S. Congress representative and so, that said the United States or through the USAID training Boko Haram, ISIS, Al-Qaeda in Africa? So you see, How can the same people who fund and support and sponsor the terrorists, and the terrorist is fighting you, and then the same people come and say, we're coming to fight you? How? African people. Tell me, that it makes sense to me. I mean, how can you explain this to me? The same people that fund terrorists, the same people that support terrorists, that sponsor terrorists, are the same people coming to you to tell you they are coming to fight for you. Nigeria Christian, can you guys explain this to us so that we can understand? Because some of you were there. Oh, the people are killing Christian. The same people that fund terrorists, and the terrorists killing the Christian. Why can't you go to these people and tell them, why are you funding these people? Because these people are killing Christian. So, Nigerian Christian, Jeffrey Epstein is telling us now, most video that we have seen, and today again, he's telling us, the same people that killing Christian in Nigeria, right? The terrorists that killing Christian in Nigeria, the Al-Qaeda, the Boko Haram that killing, the Assad that killing Christian in Nigeria, they were funded and supported and trained by the United States government, according to Jeffrey Epstein. So sit down there and look, you see, Africans, right? Our greatest enemy, the African greatest enemies is the mind. The African greatest enemy is the mind. Let me say this. I have said this time without numbers, and I will say again. I am never, ever, ever going to blame the United States what the United States do, because I know history. I am never, ever going to blame Europe what Europe do, because I know history. You know who I'm going to blame? I am going to blame we Africans, because we know history and we fail to learn from history. I am going to blame African leaders because they know their enemies and they fail to identify or call out their enemy, but rather they use their brothers and sisters as enemies. Oh, I know some of you asking me, how can an African see, or how are Africans seeing his or her brother as enemy? But let me remind you, who were the African leaders that wanted to go and wage war in Niger? Wasn't ECOWAS? Wasn't ECOWAS that was controlled by the United States and EU to go wage war on Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso? Wasn't they? Wasn't ECOWAS? Let me remind you again. Wasn't EU that put sanction on Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso because of the United States and EU or EU? Wasn't EU that put sanction on them? Yes, that's going against your brothers and sisters. That's looking at your brothers and sisters as their enemy. Meanwhile, they are not your enemies. So those are the people I'm against, I'm angry with. I am not angry with the US. I will never be. I am not angry with Europe, will never be, because I know history. That's how these people survive. They are just being sophisticated in how to stay on top, to maintain what they believe in. The people believe in something and they are maintaining what they believe in. They are keeping what they believe in. You want them to leave it, or you want them to just leave it? No. You know what? They believe that their forefathers fought. Their forefathers did the right thing. And that is why they are unapologetic. Why will you be unapologetic of something that you believe in and you just want to let it go? No. So I don't blame them for what they do, because that's how they have been doing until today. They are where they are. What I blame, where I will take my frustration, is not by US and Europe. No, I'm not going to take my frustration to them. I am taking my frustration to our current leaders. I am taking my frustration to our current journalists in various African countries, who do not understand what journalism is, who do not know what they need to report on, who they need to expose to educate our people. Those are the people I will take my frustrations on.
including the ones that just took power, to overthrow the regime. This created chaos. 600,000 dead in Syria in a war that has gone on for 14 years. The outcome of this war is what the CIA wanted back in 2011, which is that a jihad group would take power in Syria after being armed by the United States. The reason I want to be clear about this is that we will not have peace in this region until we have public diplomacy that is based on real diplomacy, not on CIA operations. And we will not have peace until Israel stops its militarization of the entire Middle East. Because the Syrian war is just one of 6 wars that Israel has promoted, including in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Somalia, and Sudan. We had the list, actually, from Wesley Clark back in 2001, when he was handed a paper in the Pentagon that the goal was 7 wars in 5 years. The only war that hasn't taken place yet, to Netanyahu's great consternation, is the US war with Iran.
Now, you see it? So now today, this war now have gone to Iran. So you see, this is something that have been, so why were you blame Iran to say Iran is the problem? When people who have planned 37 years ago to do this. And today, they said we're going to destroy Libya. Look at Libya. They said we're going to destroy Sudan. Look at Sudan. Today, look at Sudan. Today, look at Sudan. They said we're going to destroy Somalia. Look at Somalia today. And now, today, Iran. You see it. So you want to blame Iran?
Which Israel is still trying to instigate to this very day. So the Syrian war is part of a regional tragedy. We have tragedy in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Sudan, South Sudan, and Libya that I put at the hands of the United States government and its ally Israel. Because
all right, I take that out, right? Because we get into a point where we got to close and I got into stay show. But again, you see it, right? You see the plot against Africa. You see the plot against Africa. And you still sit down because you worship a religion of people who are synagogues of Satan. And you think they believe in what you believe in, or you believe. Let's continue. Your Messiah coming to save you. The same people that destroy and kill all your Messiah, that the people that are coming to be Messiah for you. No, they are not. Your Messiah is not Israel, not of the US. Your Messiah was Thomas Sankara that was killed by these people. Your Messiah was Patrick Lumumba that was killed by these people. Your Messiah was Amiga Cabral that was killed by these people. Your Messiah was Kwame Nkrumah that was removed in power by these people, that was overthrown by these people. Your Messiah was Malcolm X. Your Messiah was Marco Garvey. Your Messiah was Muammar Gaddafi. Other than that, you don't have Messiah. Other than that, there is no Messiah for you from the white man land. Let's continue.
Mafia, the Italian mob, and MI6, the previous British intelligence, and the Nazis that wanted to share their secrets. And they created a secret network that later became known as the CIA. And this is where all the dark stuff happens. Now, people they think the CIA is for national security. No, it was to enforce corporate interests.
That's what the movies say.
It's to enforce corporate interest. Because what does this military industrial complex need? It needs all your resources, Africa. It needs all your resources, Central and South America. It needs all of your labor and resources, Asia. It needs all of your oil, Middle East. And that's ours. And if you don't comply, we'll sanction you and make it where you can't trade with anyone else. We'll fund a militia group and we'll call them terrorists, and they'll just take over your resources and we'll pretend we're fighting them so that we can bomb them and then take over your resources.
Yeah.
We'll then use that economic chaos to create riots. And when there's a riot, we'll install our agents to start shooting people. And then it becomes violent. And then we can come in and we can bomb. And then what happens is we'll replace you as a leader with our leader. So are you going to comply or not? Are you going to take our money? And when you take our money, you must privatize your resources and we will own them eventually through stock market manipulation. And you must install one of our banks that becomes a member for the Bank for International Settlement. And you must borrow some dollars from the IMF or the World Bank. And if you do that, you're going to be really wealthy, but your resources are ours. And that was the model. And the CIA became the division for enforcing covert operations. Then they used the media in order to control the narrative to make people think that they were doing it for religious reason. They were a superior race. They were civilized. They were doing it for God because they're God-chosen people, whether they use Christian, weaponize religion, weaponize ideology, weaponize whatever. So, this would weaponize media, technology, military, judiciary, Senate, Congress, democracy, make people think they're voting, make people think their vote matters. When we control them, we pay the politicians. We've rigged every single election around the world. And we're led to believe that America's not rigging their own election. This power structure rigs every election because the goal is that you have to be our bitch to this network. And so you use blackmail, you need to fund it through illegal activities, and the world suddenly makes sense, right?
So you heard that. The purpose of the CIA, right? The aim of the CIA, why the CIA was formed to also create terrorist group to go in another country who are not in agreement with US policy, with Europe policy. And then the CIA will come and train terrorist group in that country and then create war in our country. And then you heard what he said. IMF, World Bank is a trap. They come and give you their money with strings attached. And then at the end, your resources for them, you can't control it. You have no authority. They bring Western or companies, American companies, come and control it, loot your resources overseas. And then the money go into politician pocket. And then the citizens want to protest, the government send police and army to go and shoot and kill the citizens. You want me to blame these people? When they are crafted in what they do, this is what the people do to survive. You want me to believe in them? I mean, not believe, but you want me to go again? I mean, it is what it is. They will never stop. So, come on. Why should I blame them? This is what they do to survive. The people I will blame are the African leaders. They see the right thing. They know what is supposed to do. They know what is supposed to do, but yet they stay. They don't. Look at Mali and Niger and Burkina Faso. Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso have seen the right thing. Have seen that, you know what? We've been lied to. We've been bamboozled. Our collective vision is what we freed Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. So we must come together and create our own currency, our own constitution, our own military army, and forgo European military and take them from our continent and take them from our land. Take them from Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. And then we can collaborate and build our own army and come out with one passport between Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Any nation that want to join, they can come and join. And we have one army, one currency. So, African president who don't want to do that, that's why my frustration go. It's not going to the US. No. These people have to survive. That's what they are doing. So, what are we doing as Africans to survive, to prepare for what is at hand already? I'm not saying what is in the future, what is coming. What is at hand? Because the hardship Africans are about to go through. Oh my God. I can see chaos. I can see frustration. I can see destruction. I can see death. I can see poverty on the African continent. What is coming? What is coming? What is coming? Ah.
All this was. I think Al Qaeda is made up. The FBI came out, I believe it was 2006, and actually said, this is verifiable, I had no concrete evidence linking Osama bin Laden with 9/11. Osama bin Laden worked for the Central Intelligence Agency.
He said, that's a commander general that's speaking. There is no evidence. There is no evidence linking Osama bin Laden to 9/11. He said, in fact, Osama bin Laden worked with the CIA, trained by the CIA. Oh God. Are you still praying, Africans? African pastor, deaconess, are you still praying for Israel and the West? Are you still praying for them? Oh, how far is your prayer taking you? How far are your prayers taking you guys? Wow. Keep praying, keep praying, keep praying and fasting.
In Afghanistan. He helped us fight the Russians when they were in Afghanistan. Okay. He was a CIA operative. CIA helped orchestrate 9/11. It was their plan. George Bush's father was having
9/11 was orchestrated by the CIA. You heard it? The 9/11 tree, the World Trade Center that was bombed, he said it was orchestrated by the CIA. Why? It means that they were used to convince the Americans to send their children to Iraq for the oil, the diamond, or the gold. You heard we played a video earlier on, right? A retired Marine officer that spoke and said they were lied to. There was no weapon of mass destruction. There was no nuclear weapon. And then when they start dropping bombs to go look, it was oil and gold. So now we see have enough gold and enough oil. So you heard what this general said. The 9/11 was orchestrated by the CIA. Let's continue.
lunch with Osama bin Laden's brother or cousin that day or the day before 9/11. So there's some business dealings going on that they don't even talk about. Another fact that can be verified. After 9/11, they shut down air traffic for a few days. No planes were allowed to fly. The only plane that was allowed to fly was bin Laden's family. They put them on government jets and flew them out of the country. They let them go. They set up bin Laden to take the flight.
How can someone who brought down 9/11, the World Trade Center, kill people, then they put him on plane. The government got him, put him on plane along with his family, flew them out. Let me say this, from my own opinion, Osama bin Laden might even be alive. The picture maybe we saw when Osama bin Laden was killed, maybe it was playing. And people believe that Osama bin Laden was killed. From these evidences that we see, Osama bin Laden might be alive. Maybe it was even wrong picture that they put out just to convince the American public that Osama bin Laden had been killed. Because you flew this man out of here. This man that you claim that bombed the World Trade Center, you flew him out of here in plane. Let's go. I don't want to go too deep. Let's continue. All right, we'll stop there. But you get it. You already get it. Osama bin Laden might be alive. Maybe the picture we saw was fake to make us believe that it was Osama bin Laden.
Fall for this.
What do you think Al Qaeda's role in all of this was?
I think Al Qaeda is made up. The FBI came out, I believe it was 2006, and actually said, this is verifiable, they had no concrete evidence linking Osama bin Laden with 9/11. Osama bin Laden worked for the Central Intelligence Agency in Afghanistan. He helped us fight the Russians when they were in Afghanistan.
Okay.
He was a CIA operative. CIA helped orchestrate 9/11. It was.
Or maybe the picture they show was bin Laden. They killed him because maybe he could expose them about what he's saying about bin Laden helped them against Russia, right? And all of those things. But anyway, I don't want to go too deep.
Is their plan. George Bush's father was having lunch with Osama bin Laden's brother or cousin that day or the day before 9/11. So there's some business dealings going on that they don't even talk about. Another fact that can be verified. After 9/11.
George Bush having lunch with Osama bin Laden bred that a day before 9/11.
They shut down air traffic for a few days. No planes were allowed to fly. The only plane that was allowed to fly was bin Laden's family. They put them on government jets and flew them out of the country. They let them go. They set up bin Laden to take the fall for this.
All right, let's continue with one video from here, right? Then we come back to the little video. Let's go here and see something. Let's see something here quick, right? We are not going to play the entire video, but we'll just play a bit, right? We'll play a bit. I want to bring something to your attention.
4620 or go to LearJudgeNap.com. Scott Ritter, welcome here, my dear friend. When we spoke last, it was Saturday morning and the war had just started, and you gave us your understanding of what had happened and where it was going. How do you feel 3 days later?
I think the things I said to you have been borne out. First of all, as a regime change operation, we have failed. I mean, the whole purpose of this was regime change. And instead, what we've done is empower the Iranian regime more than one could ever have imagined. If the goal of killing Ali Khamenei was to get Iranians in the street, we succeeded. Millions of Iranians are in the street today mourning his loss. There has never been more support in Iran for the Iranian government. And the more we bomb Iran, the stronger that support gets. I want to remind people about the impact of the strategic bombing campaign against Germany during the Second World War. It didn't break the will of the Germans. It actually made the Germans more resistant and more resilient and more effective in their production. Actually, the production of German fighters increased under bombing because they came up with new and better ways to do this. The same is true with the Iranians. The Iranians have been preparing for this conflict for over 20 years, since 2005, when Dick Cheney first threatened them with an existential war. And the preparations are played out. Iran, there is no escalatory ladder here. They've gone straight for the jugular. They are destroying the American military infrastructure in the Middle East. They are destroying the American diplomatic infrastructure in the Middle East. They are, punishing Israel in ways that Israel could not imagine. They're punishing Gulf Arab nations. They have shut down the Strait of Hormuz. For the first time, Qatar, the world's major natural gas producer, has declared force majeure. They're not shipping energy. Lloyd's of London won't insure ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. Saudi Arabia has had its critical oil infrastructure attacked, and these attacks are expanding. The United Arab Emirates have seen their safety valve, a pipeline that bypasses Strait of Hormuz, attacked. Iran has made it clear that not one barrel of energy will transit out of the Persian Gulf, which means this is the end of the global economy if this continues. And so this is victory for Iran. Iran is winning this war. Let there be no doubt about that. The buildings that are being bombed by the United States and Israel are empty buildings. As I said, Iran has been preparing for this conflict. And if you think for a second that Iran has left critical manufacturing capacity inside a building to be bombed by the United States and Israel, then you don't understand the fact of what I just said. Iran has been preparing for this conflict for 20 years. The material inside these buildings have been moved out and hidden in places where we don't know where they are and we can't reach. So we're blowing up empty buildings. But as I was told by an Iraqi general the last time we got involved in one of these lengthy Middle East conflicts, he said, Mr. Scott, you Americans are really good at blowing up buildings. He said, and we Iraqis are really good at pouring concrete. But the difference is that when you blow up a building, it's empty. And when our concrete cures, we put the material back in and we're right back to where we started. You have accomplished nothing. And I'm here to tell you right now, this campaign is just making things worse. I will say this. We did bomb a site today that is going to have strategic, as perhaps even greater strategic consequence than killing Ali Khamenei. Today, the 88-member Assembly of Experts met in Qom. The Assembly of Experts is a democratic elected body of theologians and people whose job it is to monitor the work of the Supreme Leader, and when the Supreme Leader is no longer there, to replace him. And they were voting on a new Supreme Leader today when either Israel, the United States, or both bombed the building. We don't know the fate of this assembly, but I can tell you this. If you want to encourage Iran to produce a nuclear weapon, bomb the Assembly of Experts as they pick the next Supreme Leader. Iran has openly said that they retained 450 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. We don't know where it is. Iran has probably also sequestered at least one, perhaps more, 164 centrifuge cascades, which they can use to turn that 60% into 92, 94%. And we know that Iran has claimed that they had everything necessary to build a warhead capable of delivering a nuclear weapon on one of their missiles, minus the fissile core. If we want to have a nuclear war with Iran, we're pretty much guaranteeing that outcome because we killed the one man who said no to a nuclear weapon, Ali Khamenei. He's the one who issued 2 fatwas that said Iran will not pursue these under any circumstance. He's now dead. Theologian who sits on the 3-person council that replaced him is a man who was openly articulated in favor of a nuclear weapon. Now, he could have been held back, restrained by the Assembly of Experts, who could have elected a new Supreme Leader who shared the thinking of Ali Khamenei, but they've been killed. So I can pretty much guarantee you that when they reassemble the Assembly of Experts, they will not be inclined to continue a passive stance in regard to nuclear war. The leading theologians had advised Khamenei that under existential conditions, the fatwas could be reversed, that it wasn't against Islamic jurisprudence to build a nuclear weapon if that nuclear weapon could be used to deter forces which are seeking to destroy the Islamic Republic. Those forces are at play today, played out by the bombing of the assembly experts.
What's that say?
This is for real.
Your debt is completely wiped off.
I'm so blessed.
What is the status of American and Israeli, which means they came from America or we paid for it, interceptor missiles? Are they running low?
Yes, I mean, we know they are running low. And this is why on day 3, Donald Trump, actually on day 2, Donald Trump is changing the war plan. This is why he had to meet with his war planners who said, we're done. We've shot our load. We're facing imminent disaster. We don't have any more weapons. And then he was advised by Pete Hegseth, oh no, we have some more. We have global stockpiles. Well, so they're drawing down right now from South Korea and Japan, taking THAAD missiles, taking Patriot missiles from the warfighting stocks there, which means that when you go to the National Security Strategy document promulgated by the Trump administration this past November, that said that our primary mission militarily is to have conventional military overmatch with the Chinese in the first island chain, second island chain against Taiwan. Basically, now we're stripping bare that conventional overmatch. We're weakening ourselves in the Pacific in order to sustain the fight in the Middle East. But here's another critical point, because it's not just Israel and the United States that are running out of this. For instance, United Arab Emirates, about $2 billion worth of American-made anti-missile defense system. They're running out, and they are sending an emergency call to the United States saying, we need more. Now, remember, the United Arab Emirates, together with Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and others, have been operating under a security umbrella from the United States, where the United States has promised that Iran will never threaten them so long as the United States is in position, that the United States is their true friend, their true ally. Well, Iran's blowing the hell out of these people right now, blowing the hell out of American bases, and America's been proven to be a paper tiger. They can't protect these nations. But now these nations need more ballistic missile defense. So the United States is stripping bare its Pacific front. And where are they sending these missiles? Not to the Gulf Arab states, to Israel. And this is the ultimate insult, because these Gulf Arab states who were told that America is their true friend, their true ally, are finding out the reality that the only true friend and ally the United States has is Israel, and the United States will abandon everybody else. And this is going to create political problems for the president down the road.
Just about an hour before we began.
So again, as you heard from Scott, right? In the Middle East, those nations that are having American bases, right? With the premise or premises that the United States will support them, will protect them. And today, the United States have left them hanging. Nothing have been done because the United States bases in those areas are being bombed by Iran. And Iran is saying any U.S. bases in our region will be bombed. Africa. We started this podcast today by saying this is not about Iran, U.S., Asia, Russia, or China, because those people have the military capability to protect themselves. Those people have the economic capability to protect themselves. But Africa does not have the military capability to protect Africa and African people. Africa does not have the economic capability to protect herself and its people. So this podcast is about Africa. Now, those of you so-called African leaders who have American, European bases on the African continent and in various tiny little colonial nations, with the basis of having these bases there to come and train your army to work in collaboration to fight terrorism. Meanwhile, these are the people who support and protect terrorists and give ammunition to terrorists and give money to terrorists and give medical supply to terrorists. Today, You see the region in the Middle East that can't fight for the United States, can't fight for them. Those nations have to fight for themselves. Now, what do I mean by this? Your protection does not mean having United States military bases on the African continent. Your protection does not mean having European military bases on the African continent. Your protection only and can only means having African unified military, well equipped, well prepared. Your protection can only mean you producing your own military ammo, vehicles, and ammunition on the African continent. You have the resources. Your protection can only mean producing African scientists. Your protection can only mean producing African experts, doctors on the African continent. That is your protection. Your protection does not mean having U.S. You can have your U.S. military bases. In fact, you can take the entire U.S. military and take them to Africa. That's not your protection. They are there to loot your resources. Nigeria, having United States military, you can have thousands. You can have millions. It is not your protection. Those military will bomb Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. That is what they are there for. They are there to spy. That is why they honor the Nigerian army. We didn't even know Nigeria have Air Force. Who knew Nigeria had Air Force? All along here, Boko Haram been threatening Nigeria. Who knew Nigeria had Air Force? But Europe sat down there, France sat down there, and ordered Nigeria to use Air Force to go and stop a coup in Benin. They used Nigeria Air Force to fly over Burkina Faso to go spy and see where Burkina Faso have this military equipment or power that they are fighting and defeating Boko Haram or defeating the terrorists. And Nigeria used the Air Force. Stupidity in the higher places. So Africans, your protection only come by uniting and having one military, investing in African youth to produce more scientists, investing in African youth to produce most doctors to serve African interests. Nothing less, nothing more. Invest in Africa for Africa to produce our own military weapons, nuclear weapons. That is your protection.
In our conversation here, Scott, the president was asked in the Oval Office, what's the worst case scenario? It took him a while to come up with an answer, but during the course of it, he made some comments in which he revealed his understanding of how the war is going. I'm smiling because you can imagine what he says, but I would like your thoughts on this. Chris, cut number 27.
President, what's the worst case scenario that you have planned for in Iran?
Well, I don't know if there's a worst case. We have them very much beaten militarily from the military standpoint. They're still lobbing some missiles. At some point, they won't even be able to do that because we're hitting all of their carriers. We're hitting all of their missile stock. You know, they built up all these missiles over the last few years. They had a lot of them. They've shot a lot of them, and we're knocking out a lot. I guess the worst case would be we do this, and then somebody takes over who's as bad as the previous person, right? That could happen.
So you see it. The whole thing is about regime change. You see? So some of you so-called Africans who been running around, around this, will you be pleased? People just walk into your country and come and remove your president, overthrow your president, kill your president? and then install new government that is not of you, that is not for you, will you be pleased? Oh, I see. You are pleased when NATO and the United States went and killed Gaddafi. You were pleased. Stupid, dumb people.
We don't want that to happen. It would probably be the worst. You go through this, and then in 5 years, you realize you put somebody in who was no better.
You know, with AI,
you can create any character you want in seconds.
This used to require huge Hollywood budgets.
Have an act.
So you heard what he said, right? They are looking for somebody to put in. So, oh God. And Donald Trump made a statement before the new leader of Iran came in, his son. But you know what he said? Already looking at somebody to put there. And then he said, but equally so, we need to know who to put there, because we cannot put somebody in and then they go there, they do not protect American interest. Then that would be foolish. That would be nothing done. So we have to put somebody there that we can control. You see that? Regime change.
Create a realistic grasp on the state of hostilities over there?
No. Again, I mean, I say no. I don't have access to the intelligence, but what I can say is this, that the Iranians have been preparing for this very fight for 20 years. And the notion, I just want to remind people in the audience, because I know I'm not supposed to read the comments, but every once in a while I glimpse at it. And I see some people who are repeating some of the Israeli propaganda where the Israelis say that they've taken Iran down to their last 12 launchers. Well, count the number of missiles that are fired from Iran, and I guarantee you it's more than 12. So right off the bat, that math doesn't work. But, you know, when I was in the Gulf Desert Storm, we were trying to, interdict Iraq's ability to fire missiles into Israel and Saudi Arabia. We had assessed that Iraq had 19 mobile launchers. By the end of the first week and a half, we had destroyed 64. Yes, you heard me, 64, which means we weren't destroying mobile launchers because, first of all, the Iraqis continued to fire high volumes of missiles, indicating there was no meaningful intervention. The fog of war is absolute. You always have military people who believe they're accomplishing more than they're actually accomplishing. And for political reasons, they tend to produce reports that are designed to appease their political masters, not to speak reality. I can pretty much guarantee you that the Iranians have many, many more launchers than 12, and that we haven't even begun to tickle their stockpiles of missiles. We may have blown up some, whether or not the Iranians offered them up as decoys to absorb American military capability or whatever, but Iran will continue to fire missiles for a lot longer than we can continue to defend ourselves from missiles. And then the other thing is the ignorance of this president. He tends to believe that we can replace the Iranian government. We can't. Iran is a functioning constitutional republic. I know the United States isn't, because we have this narcissistic cult of personality in place instead of a president who adheres to the Constitution. We have a Congress that absolutely is punted on its responsibility regarding war powers. And we have a Supreme Court that has been mocked and belittled and ignored by this president. So we don't function as a nation that adheres to checks and balances as required by Federalist Paper 51. Where James Madison wrote that down. The danger of giving the president so much powers is that it can become a tyranny. But to offset is we have checks and balances. But we don't have checks and balances anymore. Iran does. Iran functions as a constitutional republic and will continue to function. So the notion of us picking a replacement is absurd. Iran will pick the replacement. And Iran's replacement will be somebody who operates in defense of the Islamic Republic. And this is the defeat. There will not be regime change in Iran. This president is simply smoking dope.
When we spoke on Saturday, shortly thereafter, some European media was reporting that the State Department had reached out to its counterparts in the Italian Foreign Ministry and asked the Italian Foreign Minister to ask the Iranian foreign minister if they'd consider a ceasefire, and the response was no and hell no. Well, if
I mean, let me read here. Let me read here. So it says it seemed like maybe Netanyahu might have been taken out by Iran. The reason why I didn't dive into that area, I mean, I've been hearing it, right? But I don't want to speak about it because I don't have tangible information, or at least something that I can, try to venture around or to bring it out. So that's why I didn't talk about it. But yes, I've been hearing that, but even if that happened, the media is not going to talk about it. You're not going to see it right now because this whole situation is still in a, what I want to say, for lack of a better word, it's still fresh, right? So even if this has happened, you don't want for Iran to see that they have won or they are victorious, right? Or they have or something, or they have succeeded. So they're going to keep it. They're not going to talk about it, right? But I mean, I'm also hearing this, but I haven't heard it from certain people that I want to confirm from. So that's why you see I'm not talking about it, because it is certain people that I need to hear from. Then I will know it is confirmed. But I'm hearing that in the air.
this is true, why would the U.S. have asked for a ceasefire 24 hours after it started this?
Because we realized that the regime change fantasy that we had wasn't going to work. We realized that by killing Ali Khamenei, all we did is enrage the Iranian people. And we realized that the Iranians had a plan that was better than our plan. We realized that should this conflict go on, Iran will cripple the global economy by shutting the Strait of Hormuz and attacking the critical energy infrastructure of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar. I mean, look at Europe right now. The price of gasoline has doubled in England. The price of the price of natural gas in Europe is spiking, and it's going to go even higher. This is the end of the European economy. They can't afford to go on. We need to avoid this, so we were reaching out. The president realized that we have insufficient resources to accomplish this mission, and so that we were looking for the easy way out. But again, this president is just a known liar. It's just a natural-born liar. He says that they are in contact with the Iranians. They are not in contact with the Iranians. The Iranians did not reach out to the United States. Ali Lajarni, the man who is responsible for taking over the functions of the supreme leader that was handed to him before the war began, has said there will be no negotiations. None. This is an existential struggle for survival for Iran. They are playing for keeps here. They're not playing stupid games. The president only plays stupid games. He doesn't know anything else. We go nuclear? Does Iran go nuclear? Does the world end? Because he thinks that this conflict can be contained in the Middle East is crazy.
The Congress is supine, we know that, but every once in a while, one of them says something which is excellent. This is a Democrat. This is Congressman Jason Crow. If the name rings a bell, he's retired intelligence or military, I'm not sure which. He's one of the 6 who reminded members of the military they have a duty to disobey illegal orders, and the Justice Department sought to indict him, and the grand jury hearing only the government's version of events said no. Here is Congressman Crow with what I think is an excellent analysis of what the Trump administration says are its goals and its reasons for this war. Chris, number 28.
Well, the real justification for this, please stand up. Because one moment it's regime change, another moment it's some undefined, unverifiable imminent threat. Another moment it's somebody else who's going to start this war, so we need to start it before they do. It is changing by the hour and by the person, depending upon who you talk to, and it's madness. It's madness. We now have multiple countries being hit. This is spreading throughout the region. Gas prices are up. The stock market is plunging. American service members are being killed. We have 50,000 servicemen and women from the United States in this region who are sitting in bunkers, being bombarded with drones and missiles. We don't know, I don't know, sitting here today, whether or not we have the munitions and the capability to protect them in the weeks and months ahead. It is madness, which is exactly why Donald Trump is unfit to be in this position to do this, right? He is trying to project power. He's making decisions without consulting people, making decisions without a plan. Americans, our troops deserve far better than this.
The Federalist paper, which you cited, Madison argues that if the president could both choose war and wage war, he wouldn't be a president, he'd be a prince, and we're not electing a prince. Madison also argued that Congress must initiate war, not ratify a war the president has initiated. These are not semantic differences. These separations of power were written to preserve human freedom so that too much power is not accumulated in one branch, in this case, the presidency.
Right. I think Madison also wrote Federalist 10, which talks about factionalism and the danger of factionalism. And of course, that's what we have right now in the United States. We don't have political parties anymore. We have factions. And as a result, we have it's impossible now to get bipartisan agreement on anything. You're either MAGA or you're not. Factionalism. And that's the death of the Republic as well. Madison was a very wise man. I wish more people would familiarize themselves with Madison's writing and the writing of all the people who wrote not only the Federalist Papers, but the Anti-Federalist Papers, because the Anti-Federalist Papers gave us the Bill.
Anyway, we can't end the video. I know it looks sweet, but because of time, right? We gotta go. We gotta go, folks. We gotta go. But let's continue. Let's go. Let's go.
Real-time signals intelligence and electronic assistance to the Iranians.
So we're fighting a proxy war with China right now.
It's a world war. At the end of the day, the real winner of this conflict is China.
Of course.
That we are going. This is the end of American military power for a generation.
Welcome back, guys. So on the Tucker Carlson podcast, they said something that Washington doesn't want you to hear. America's fighting a proxy war with China. It's a world war, and China will be the real winner. And you know what? They're right. National security analyst Brandon Weichert confirming that the United States is engaged in World War III. It's just being fought through Iran instead of directly. So today we're going to break down exactly how China is helping Iran bleed America dry. And more importantly, we're going to answer the question that should terrify every American. Is this the end of American military power? Let's get into it.
So what about the question of hypersonic weapons? You read that Iran has them. They've been given them.
Oh, yeah. They've got them. In fact, I got an interesting report from overseas yesterday. And again, these are sort of, I take with a grain of salt, but they've been right. And when they're right, though, they're really right. This one came from our friends in Russia. So take from this what you will. But the report that I received was a retired Russian general is telling the press over there that he knows for a fact there's a cluster of Chinese high-tech officers or technical officers on the ground in Iran right now, perfecting and maintaining Iran's growing, they're still building them, growing hypersonic weapons capability.
All right, let's start here. Tucker Carlson, the man who spent years calling China a catastrophe for the United States, is now sitting there nodding along as his guest explains that Chinese military officers are on the ground in Iran, helping them build hypersonic weapons. The cognitive dissonance must be physically painful. But here's the thing. Weichert is right. Iran's Fateh 2 hypersonic glide vehicle, unveiled by the IRGC and confirmed in combat use, reaches speeds of Mach 15 with a range of over 1,400 kilometers. That's a verified weapon.
So let's do something here. Let's do the math. I know some of you might be wondering, why is Frank showing days? Now, is it about China? Folks, no. But listen to this. It's all part of it. If the United States cannot go directly to China, where would the United States go? The United States will go to Russia, Iran, make sure, defeat and bring down Iran. That is why they want regime change, because the prime minister or the government that was in Iran that got killed by the bombing of US and Asia strike was on the side of China and Russia. And before the bombing took place, right? Did you remember? The Shahid nation have gone to Iran and met this prime minister or government that was killed, that was brought down by US strike and Israel. The Shahid nation have gone and met him. And you know, when Abraham Traore meets you, Abraham Traore is not coming for aid. When Abraham Traore meets you, Abraham Traore is not coming for money. Because Abraham Traore believes Africa does not need money. Abraham Traore believes Africa does not need bag of rice from Europe and America or from anyone. What Abraham Traore is coming for, he's coming for the technology. You remember when Abraham Traore went to Russia, he met Vladimir Putin. What did Abraham Traore tell Russia or the Russian people? He told them, Burkina Faso is not here to ask you to beg you for money or for beg you for aid, like our so-called African leaders who go to Europe and America and beg them for aid or for money. The Shahid nations are not here in Russia for that, to beg for aid and money. We are not here to beg you to put bag of rice on ship and send it to the Shahid nation. No. Abraham Traore said, we are here because we need your technology. We are here because we need your technology so that we can go and educate and equip our people to fight for ourselves. Abraham Traore said, I am not here to tell you to come and fight for me. We need your equipment, your support, your technology so that we can feed and fight for ourselves. Because a nation that cannot feed herself is not a nation, but a territory controlled by another person, a colony controlled by another person, a nation that cannot fight for its land mass, a nation that cannot fight for its airspace is a nation of territory, a nation of colony, a de facto nation. So Abraham Traore said, we do not want to be called a territory, a de facto nation, a colony, but a nation of sovereignty. Henceforth, we are here to exchange. We gave you something, you gave us something. And that thing that we need from you is not aid, we don't need it. It's not food, we didn't need it. We need your technology. And Vladimir Putin said, let's go. So when Abraham Traore went to Russia, Abraham Traore was in Iran. And a week later, United States and Asia went and bombed. So Abraham Traore was in Iran and met the Iranian prime minister for collaboration of technology. Weeks later, boom, they bump him. So they saw that this prime minister was not on the side of the US. So what then happened? You have to go after him and remove him because he now have Russia and China and now the AES nation. You see that? So if you can't go to China, you have to go to the person, right? To China. And remove it and do regime change. Put somebody in that will not support China. You have Trump. We have to be calculated because after they kill him, right? Then they have not yet put in his son. So they thought it was going to succeed. And Trump said, we have to be calculated. So we might go for the old leader and put him in. But again, we have to be calculated to know who we put there, because if we put somebody there that is not in our interest, then no job done. Then we have to go back. You see that? And now, regime change failed. The man's son came in power. You think you're going to kill my pa, my father, and then you kill my daughter, my young daughter, and you think I will come to power and be for you? All hell break loose. That is what happened in Iran. The United States failed. Because this other regime change, it brought disaster. So now you see, do unto others as you expect others to do unto you. You supported Ukraine with your army ammunition. What do you expect China to do? China should go and sit down. They are friends. They are allies. So China will support Iran the same way you supported Ukraine. Russia will support Iran. You see what is going on? This thing. Africa, be prepared, because everything I'm discussing here is not about China, Russia, Iran, US. No, it's about Africa. Are we ready? There is no black nation in the world that can protect any black man. There is no black nation in the world that is ready for the disaster that is coming. We are going to be affected the most.
Weapon system that has been used in this conflict. And Iran is also in advanced discussions to purchase China's DF-17 hypersonic glide missile to supplement its own stockpile. The Chinese technical officers on the ground aren't just advisors, they're weapons testers. Every missile Iran fires at a US base is a data point that goes straight back to Beijing. China is getting real-world combat data on how its hypersonic systems perform against US air defenses, without firing a single shot, without risking Chinese lives, without triggering direct US retaliation.
And the reason is because the Chinese want to test these systems because they're basically very similar to the Chinese ASBM, which of course, when and if, and I really hope it's if, the war with China erupts, the first thing the Chinese are going to do after they knock out our satellites and disrupt our electromagnetic frequencies is they're going to use thousands of ASBMs ringed in those man-made islands to either keep our carriers at bay so that we can't launch planes in range, or to sink or destroy the carrier's flight deck. And the Iranians are Iran rather is the test bed, the same way that we've been using Ukraine as a test bed against Russian tech. And so the Iranians have them. They're buried in those underground missile cities. They have not really fired them. I believe they fired 4 ballistic missiles at the carrier after Khamenei was killed. That was a symbolic attack, though. If the Iranians really wanted to go ham on the carrier with a missile swarm, they absolutely could. The only thing that would be preventing them was if we had degraded their C2 functions enough. And at that time, I don't believe we had.
What's the C2 function?
I'm sorry. That's command and control. So basically their ability to control their systems and issue commands. That's why before the war began, the Iranians basically, the government said to their local field commanders, we're going to give you permission to take command of your individual missile batteries so that if something like killing Khamenei happens, you can just start going and you won't have to call in for orders or for range. And by the way, the Chinese are using their Yaogan, I think it's their Yaogan satellite constellation to do surveillance of the carrier and of the U.S. air bases in the region, and they are providing increasingly accurate targeting sets to the Iranians. In fact,
Yes, that's why I didn't talk about it, because like I said, I don't talk about something that I don't really have a concrete information. It is something I just hearing out there, about his death, but I don't believe it's true, because like I said, there are certain people I need to hear it from, and then I know it's confirmed. But it's not true. It's not yet confirmed. Like you're saying, it's false. Yeah, it's true. People are saying some of these things to get attention on their platform, to get view, to get followers, those things, Yeah, but here we don't do it to get view. Yeah, we don't do it here to get view. So that's why we don't report on something when we don't have that information, because we know who we are talking about. So you have to be careful and present according to what they say, and you emphasize on it. And see, so yeah, like you're saying, it's not true, and that's why I didn't believe it, because I didn't. Yeah, it's true. It's not true that he's on alive. No, it's not true. Whether it's true or not, but at this point, it's false. We don't have concrete information on it. So you're right.
I believe the reason the Iranian missiles have been so effective in damaging our bases, and boy, have they done a doozy. It is not being reported accurately. They have done a real doozy to these bases. It's because of the fact that the Chinese are providing direct real-time signals intelligence and electronic assistance to the Iranians.
Now, this is the segment that should have every Pentagon planner losing sleep, if they're being honest with themselves, really. Brandon just confirmed what we've been saying all along. Every missile that hits a U.S. base is giving China's military planners real-world data on how American air defenses perform, where the gaps are, and how to improve their own systems. Let's talk about the ASBMs. China.
But we played a video here before, right? And one of the Chinese official was saying, if America won war, they will give America war, and America will not win. And he said China will not be the one to fire the first shot, but the second shot will now be fired again. China will not be the one to fire the first shot, but China will fire the second shot, and there will be no more shot. The videos are there. So the Chinese know what they are saying. They mean it. They are prepared. They have the scientists. They have it. And he said there is no military that can win the Chinese military at this point as we speak. The United States, he said the United States cannot fight and win China. Anyway, let's continue. We don't want to talk into that. We are talking about Africa and African people, black people around the world, right? We don't want to dive into certain things, because it seems that we are talking against, and we are not against anybody, right? We are just bringing awareness to the African family, to the black family, period. Let's continue.
As DF-21D, the carrier killer, has a range of between 1450 and 1550 kilometers, and is specifically designed to hit moving aircraft carriers. The DF-26B extends that range to over 3,000 kilometers, putting Guam in range. These missiles are deployed on China's artificial islands in the South China Sea, and the data China is collecting from Iran's missile strikes on U.S. bases right now is going directly into improving the targeting algorithms for those systems. And the satellite intelligence piece? Brandon mentions the Yaogan constellation, China's reconnaissance satellite network providing real-time targeting data to Iranian forces. Let me be specific about what this means. China has 144 plus Yaogan satellites in orbit as part of a 300 plus satellite surveillance constellation. The most advanced, Yaogan 41, operates in geostationary orbit and can achieve 2.5 to 15 meter resolution. enough to identify car-sized objects and track aircraft in real time. But here's the critical part. A Chinese intelligence company called Mizar Vision publicly posted the exact locations of US military aircraft and installations in the Persian Gulf region. And then, within days, those exact same facilities were targeted by Iranian missiles and drones. The Iranians have access to 1-meter resolution satellite imagery, with multiple images per minute of US military targets. And the data is flowing directly from China's satellite constellation to Iranian targeting systems.
All right, I take it out right now. You know what is going on. I'm not exposing China. No, no, right? Anyway, let's continue. I mean, the United States helped Ukraine, so if China is allied to Iran, what do you expect? When you have a great ally will be with you. Only African people who don't have ally and their ally can never be with them. The only thing Africans know what to do, I mean, they are leaders, right? They will come on the world stage, talk about Allah, this, that, but none of their Allah have ever been there for them. None. Oh my God, Africa, a continent that have more but gain nothing. A continent that have abundance of everything but gain nothing.
Be a fractured state. They want Lebanon to be a fractured state. What they want in Iran, we talk about the nuclear program, the nuclear enrichment program, and the argument is sometimes made that the principal goal, the only goal, is to go in and eliminate their nuclear capability.
That's a lie.
Well, it's just part of the story. You could call it a lie. What the Israelis want to do is they want to break Iran apart. They want to make it look like Syria, right? You want neighbors that are not powerful. You want them to be fractured. Jordan and Egypt, they have a different solution there. And what's happened is because those countries are economically backwards, the United States gives them huge amounts of economic aid.
I've noticed.
Yeah. And that's done for a purpose. And anytime the Egyptians...
And what's the purpose?
Because anytime the Egyptians or the Jordanians get uppity about Israel, the United States reminds them, you better behave yourself because we have huge economic leverage over you. You have to be friendly to Israel. So Jordan and Egypt never caused the Israelis any problem.
It sounds like our entire foreign policy, at least in the Western Hemisphere, is based on this one country.
Well,
what we did to Iraq. Look what we did to Libya. Libya, the most successful country in all of Africa. The guy created the eighth wonder of the world with the way how he delivered water and turned deserts into farmland. And everybody had a house and everybody had education and healthcare. And we turned it into a failed state run by terrorists with open slave markets. Who did that? Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton did that. And they'll never have to pay a price for that. Barack Obama, the most they'll do is go, that was a mistake.
But why did they get rid of Gaddafi?
Because he was going to start a currency of Africa just for that was going to compete with the US dollar and the euro. And they can't have that because the way the United States controls the world is because the United States dollar is the reserve currency of the world. So that's why they can put sanctions on all these countries. And so what they're doing, which they shouldn't do, they're weaponizing the US dollar. And so like when countries want to trade with each other, they have to go take their currency, change it into US dollars so they can trade. And a lot of it was based on the petrodollar, which by the way, Saudi Arabia just quit. They didn't renew it. I don't know if you heard about
Yeah,
that.
I did hear about that.
So, and all of a sudden, CBS News is starting to do news stories about how Saudi Arabia was involved in 9/11. All of a sudden, 24 years later, all of a sudden, oh, you know what? Turns out it was something. And they're like, you mean 2 weeks after they decided to not renew the $1? Now CBS News is allowed to talk about that and investigate it, which when I talked about it, got demonetized. But anyway, so that's why, because Gaddafi was doing that. He was going to set up a currency for all of Africa, and it was going to be based on have a gold standard. And so they're like, no, you're not doing that. And they made up a thing like, we got to save the people. Whatever they don't give a about the people in America. They got veterans and everybody else living under every goddamn bridge in this country. You think if they gave about those people, don't you think they'd start helping the people right outside the front door?
Right.
Instead of, no, I got to go help people in Libya, and we got to help people. It's about helping people in Ukraine, and it's about helping people in Taiwan, and it's about no. This is all about an upward transfer of money. This is about balkanizing countries and turning it over to BlackRock and Vanguard. That's what this is about.
The world needs to understand. The U.S. and Israel murdered Ali Khamenei. They murdered the supreme leader. People need to stop pretending this wasn't an event. This is a earth-shattering event. The Iranian people are enraged. They will not stop this war until they get their revenge. And their revenge will be against the nation state Israel that perpetrated this and against the United States. This doesn't end with the United States having a military footprint in the Middle East. Iran will seek to eliminate that. Now, if Donald Trump is willing to withdraw the totality of American forces from the Middle East, that could bring about, the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz and peace and comfort with the Gulf Arab states. But if Donald Trump wants to pretend that the United States has an inherent right to continue to have a military presence in the Middle East after they use that military presence to carry out a surprise attack against Iran, you're smoking dope. And if you think Israel gets to continue to exist in a manner that threatens Iran, no. Israel murdered the supreme leader. They now have the son of the supreme leader as the supreme leader. You think he's going to sit there and say, it's all cool. You murdered my dad. You killed my daughter. You guys tend to forget about that. 14-month-old granddaughter of Ali Khamenei. Murdered by Israel. Murdered. And you want to pretend that they're going to sit there and say, it's all good. 170 school children murdered by the United States. And you want to pretend that Iran's going to go, it's good. They blew up an oil facility. It's raining acid rain, death, oil, death, fire in the streets of Tehran. And you want the Iranians to go, that's cool. What the hell? Let bygones be bygones. No, Israel and the United States entered an existential war against Iran. Existential means life terminating. Iran has played that game. They picked up the ball and they said, let's play. They're not going to quit until they get their results. And their results are America out of the Middle East and Israel never again.
Functioning constitutional democracies in over 20 countries. We manipulated elections in dozens of countries. We created standing armies and directed them to fight. We went after to organize ethnic minorities to encourage them to revolt. The first thing we did in Nicaragua was to go to the Mosquito Indians, who had never gotten along with the other people in Nicaragua very well, and give them more money than they had seen in the entirety of history, and arms and training and rationales and sanctuaries in Honduras, and sent them into Nicaragua to attack, kill, fight, rape, burn, pillage. And this has been a technique the CIA has used in Nicaragua, in Thailand, in Vietnam, in Laos, in the Congo, in Iran, Iraq with the Kurds, in different parts of the world. We created, trained, and funded death squads like the Treasury Police in El Salvador. And we've assassinated world leaders, including the United States president in 1963. And I'll get to that in more detail in just a moment. You can never be sure how many people are killed in the jungles of Laos or the hills of Nicaragua, but adding them up as best we can, we come up with a figure of 6 million people killed, minimum figure. It has to be more than that. These things are all done in countries of the third world where the governments don't have the power to force the United States to stop destabilizing the country and brutalizing their people.
A reasonable question, but the trouble is you can't pick up the phone book. There's no Langley in Israel that you can look up, CIA, or in our case, the Mossad. We thought we should ask, what shall we call it in English? You can translate the Hebrew words, as I said, Mossad is institute, but when they write a letter to their friends in the CIA or the British intelligence, what do they call themselves? It took a while. It was a matter of asking the Prime Minister's spokesman. The best you could do, because officially the Mossad is under the Prime Minister's office. And I think he sort of wondered why you want to know and all that, so we explained. And he came up with the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. I mean,
Now, the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service, you know what is that? ISIS. 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 The Israeli Secret Intelligence Services. ISIS. ISIS. Now, you know what ISIS is? A terrorist group. Africans, I used to pray for Israel. When ISIS, the Israelis and the services, intelligence, whatsoever, is killing Africans in Africa, I used to pray for Israel. You see ISIS? It is an Israeli Secret Intelligence Services group. ISIS. I used to pray for them. You see how we have been played all along? And then we did, oh, ISIS is here, ISIS is terrorist, ISIS is this, ISIS is that, but it's Israel working for Israel. You see that? ISIS. Israelis. let me play. I'm going to play it back. I will play it for the second time.
if it were to have initials, it would be ISIS. Just simple words like that. Interestingly enough, kind of a British model. The British don't really like the names MI5 and M.
You know, Hamas, if you look at the history, you'll find out that Hamas was encouraged and really started by Israel because they wanted Hamas to counteract Yasser Arafat. And you said, well, yeah.
So you see, all the terrorist groups are funded by them, by the West. In some time history, to go against other people. Now you see it. All these terrorist groups funded by them. The Nigerian army told us Boko Haram was funded by them. In fact, the Nigerian army once said in 2012 that Melesse Sans Frontier was giving medical support to Boko Haram. And he said, how can we be fighting Boko Haram and then injuring Boko Haram? And then we have an NGO from France, Melesse Sans Frontier, giving medical treatment to Boko Haram. And then Melesse Sans Frontier said, we are being neutral. We are just being neutral. We are for everybody. I can't make this out, folks.
That was better then and served its purpose, but we didn't want Hamas to do this. So then we as Americans say, well, we have such a good system, we're going to impose this on the world. We're going to invade Iraq and teach people how to be Democrats. We want free elections. So we encourage the Palestinians to have a free election. They do, and they elect Hamas.
Mr. Roman, are you aware that we are sending $40 million a week to the Taliban?
Yes, sir.
Can you name other instances of foreign aid going?
$40 million a week to the Taliban in Afghanistan at that time. $40 million a week to the Taliban, to the terrorists. Are these the people that are coming to fight to die for Africans? You Christian in Nigeria. You the Christ. You the Christ. You the fee say these people they come to die for you. You the Christ. You be mumu. You know their sense. Where he said these people they come fight for you? Where? Where? Where say these people they come Nigeria to come, they come fight for you. Where the Nigerian army feel they there. The Nigerian army no go fight. But it is these people who will come Nigeria to come fight for you, the Christ. These people who they form Boko Haram. These people who they form the terrorists. These people who they form the Al-Qaeda. If we then say that they come fight for you, Christian,
into terrorist organizations.
We have assisted al-Shabaab in Somalia. There's been instances of the Khamsi network in Sudan, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Kataib al-Hezbollah, Hayat Tahrir al-Shams in Syria. Dozens of terror organizations have received indirect assistance from U.S. foreign aid.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the mechanisms in place that are to stop foreign aid from going to terrorist groups, and why are they not working if we have any in place?
Sure.
And I would note that these are, you notice, these are terrorist weaponry. You see some AKs, SKSs, some snipers, some clips, some clip carriers, probably made in China. And I believe these are small landmines here beside right there.
Are completely against this war because, like you said, the president has made no case for it. We live our ordinary lives and we don't feel threatened by Iran. We don't walk around thinking that in any moment an Iranian ballistic missile is going to land on our head. And I was out there on the front lines for Make America Great Again. And Make America Great Again was supposed to be America first, not Israel first, not any foreign country first, not any foreign people first, but the American people first. Now, as we have seen over 100 little girls killed at a school from a bomb, and I don't know whose bomb it was, but they're dead today because America and Israel attacked Iran. So that's not really good for Iranian women. And our president is saying that the Iranian people are all of a sudden going to topple their regime. Well, I don't think the Iranian people are going to be toppling their regime when they're getting blown apart by the United States and Israel in an unprovoked attack. And yes, it was unprovoked. And Pete Hegseth said this morning, Megan, he said that we didn't start this war. But I hate to argue with the Secretary of the Department of War. America and Israel definitely started this war, and you can't lie that away to the American people. And so, you know how I feel right now? I am irate. I am furious about this. We are nearly $40 trillion in debt. How much is this war going to cost us? We have seen enough of our American troops dead and murdered for foreign countries. And now we've had 4 dead and murdered, just like you said, for Israel and for the Iranian people, not for the American people. And I don't want to see any more dead and murdered. When we have a president of the United States who doesn't think and is convinced he's not going to heaven, what does that mean his decision-making is? He already said to the New York Post today that he doesn't care about the polling. He doesn't care about what the American people think, and he may put troops on the ground. He took this is going to be a few-day war, to now it's going to be maybe 4 weeks or more. I want to say, what is happening to the man that I supported? And we're a year in, and we're in another fucking war, and we've got American troops being killed. I think it's time for America to rip the Band-Aid off, and we need to have a serious conversation about what the fuck is happening to this country and who in the hell are these decisions being made for and who is making these decisions. Most Americans are completely
Let's hear from Nicola Arvin, a retired United States Marine in Iraq.
Afghanistan, you should be pissed. I'm pissed. You know, like you go over there, you lose your friends. I got them tattooed on my arms. I got them on me, guys that I lost. And I carry the memories of more guys that I lost when I got out from suicide, you know, and being in. I've buried more of my friends outside the military than when I was in. I've buried more of my friends. A lot of my team leaders, guys that I looked up to, killed themselves like when they got home. And I don't know what we were there for. I mean, you look at it now, it's like, well, you tell us to go over here and take out these people, and we allegedly did something like that. And years later, you let them be in control of the government. Then you give them all our equipment. Then you give them millions of dollars weekly, monthly in cash. Doesn't make any sense. And you know how the Taliban treats their people. I mean, if you served in Afghanistan, you should be pissed. I'm pissed.
Nicola Arvin, basically, he is saying he's pissed. The same people, they were made to believe that they were this, they were that. They went. Most of his men got killed. And even some of the United States Marines that returned back home committed suicide. And then, according to him, to find out the same people, the Taliban or the terrorists they were fighting, the United States was giving support to those people, were giving money to those people, funds to those people. And then they found out their equipment after they left. The United States gave their equipment to the Taliban. Africans. Let me see here. Soldiers say Iranian people are relentlessly taking note. They are taking note, right? And then I think he was trying to say African take notes from what is happening in Iran. Yeah. Africans, are you taking note from what is happening? African leaders. I laugh, but it is not a laugh. Because I see the calamity that is coming, and Africans will suffer. Africans will die even before the war, the actual war begins. The war is on already. But I mean Africans, because the war that is on is just drum, you know, people shooting drum, drum, drum. But the real war that is coming, well, men and men will stand and fight. The real war that is coming, economic war. We are not there. I see Africans dying in masses because we are not prepared to feed ourselves. We wait for US to come and give food to us. When we have the soil, the only African leaders on the African continent are the Shahid nation, who are investing in agriculture for their people to feed themselves. But the rest of the African leaders are waiting for their slave master, America and Europe, to come and feed their people. Stupidity in higher places. To hell with those African leaders.
I would totally respect a dishonorable discharge at this moment because you shouldn't die for Bibi Netanyahu's messianic vision.
Candace Owens really upset a lot of people.
Oh,
It
yeah.
seems like
It's like her job, kind of like JD Vance, just to say stuff that drives people crazy. Here, she did it again. She says, do not join or remain in the United States military.
I say that. Don't do that.
Trump has betrayed America and expects you to die for Israel. There is no honor in being led by dishonorable men to your death.
You got to be a dumbass Okie from Skokie if you're joining up to fight Iran.
To fight,
I know you're not Jewish because they don't want to fight it. They want somebody else to.
So now you're a bad American if you don't want to get recruited to fight in Israel's war, apparently. But here she is. Let's listen.
War in Iran is on the agenda, and that appears so. Get dishonorably discharged. Who cares? Who cares? Why should you go die in a foreign land? You now have the benefits of 2020. You can see, think about those men and those women who died because they were pitched that they were serving their country because there were weapons of mass destruction, right? They were serving their country because the Taliban, they were serving their country, whatever, and these people gave up their lives. And ask yourselves for what? And the answer to that question is for the elites. They're like toy soldiers. And I would have said that Trump would never do that to you. He would never just throw you into an Israeli war. But right now our planes are flying in the sky. So I don't have that confidence anymore. And I'm comfortable with people being dishonorably discharged because the dishonor has come from our politicians. The dishonor has come from our politicians who routinely lie in our faces and are willing to let us die to serve their financial interests. So why don't they dishonorably discharge themselves from public office? That works for me. And I think a great place for you guys to go into would be into security. There are a lot of security firms that are popping up all over. I'm certainly a person that needs security all the time. And I think that's the way. Start establishing your own security companies and all other jobs. I mean, you guys are the brawn, you know what I mean? And there's no question that America is never out of jobs for people who are willing to actually use their bodies. We need you guys. And I would totally respect a dishonorable discharge at this moment because you shouldn't die for Bibi Netanyahu's messianic vision.
You know, they tell us that soldiers have the right to disobey illegal orders. But if they did, that would have canceled all our illegal wars in the last couple of decades.
Well, they technically weren't wars, Jimmy. They were police actions.
They were police
that people
actions,
died
yeah.
for nothing for. In fact, think of the criticism of doing OnlyFans and how much more you got suckered if you're in Iran fighting right now for fucking Israel.
Here she comes back and she says, Zionists are having a meltdown about what I said yesterday. So let me reiterate. Do not sign up for or continue to fight for the U.S. military. This war is on behalf of satanic PDF files. Find the legal means to exit the military. Do not fight for child grapers. Come home.
Yeah, who would at this point? And by the way, I bet a bunch of military thinks that. And I've heard them speak and go, oh, the morale on the front line might be damaged by this talk. So you know it's already a problem.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody putting yellow ribbons on the old oak tree by where I live. Anybody doing that near you?
I haven't seen it yet. This guy says, Republic Apostle says, I did my time and say this as a veteran. Do not join. Do not go die for Israel. These people see you as cattle. This is not honorable or patriotic, what is happening. You will not be serving your country, but another one located over 5,000 miles away. Stay home. Your country needs you to defend the homeland, not a terrorist state.
Don't.
All right, folks. Once again, this is Frank. I am your host. This is the Revolutionary Repatriation Educational Lecture Series aspect of WCC. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hanging in. Like, share, subscribe. You know how we do it. We don't disappoint. All right. That is the end of today's discussions. This is Frank. How did you like it? Put in your comment in the recording after the live and let me know how it went so that we can keep improving. I mean, tell me my fault, my shortcoming, where I needed to improve, right? Let me know. And so we can improve because this show is our show. We are here to learn and make sure and bring awareness to our people, just our people, just Black people. All right. I will see you all Saturday or Sunday. Peace.
The white power structure because that's all we have in America. And the white power structure today is just as much interested in perpetuating slavery as the white power structure was 100 years ago.